Election 2024 is over. America has voted, and both sexism and racism have won the day. On Liberal Dan Radio, we will hold everyone accountable, from the media that failed to report the threat that Trump poses to this nation, to the people who supported him. We will pick up the mantle to educate the people about his actions, from being dictator on day one, pardoning January 6th domestic terrorists, implementing Project 2025, and any other draconian measures he tries to pass. And now, the resistance begins. And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. When we do open the phone lines, if we do open the phone lines, the phone number would be 562-542-3261 or 562-LIBDAN1. If we do open that, I will put that number up on the screen right there, what's flashing right now. I would put that up there, and then we'll open up the phone lines and let you all call in. But before we get there, we're going to talk about a couple of other topics that we'd like to discuss. You know, some personal stuff, some Nerdy Dan stuff, because I have a new game. We'll talk about that in a second. And, you know, we want to get through. We're going to be doing some recording. And typically when I record the stuff, I don't want to have a live call. However, you know, once we stop doing that, perhaps we'll open up the phone lines a bit to get some of our favorites, maybe some of our not so favorites. I got a weird email from Joe, our friend Joe, from the other side of the aisle, inviting me to see some sort of Zoom call or something. I don't know what that was about, but it seemed like I was getting like access to the inner sanctum of some horrible shit. So unfortunately, it's over, so I can't join it now because I had to download Zoom on this new laptop. And by the time it got downloaded and finished looking at all this stuff, it was probably over at that point. So I would have loved to have been able to air that meeting live on YouTube, as you know, to see what the hell these deplorables are up to. But you know, we'll see. I guess I sent him an email like, what the hell is this about? And I guess we'll see what it was about.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Let's see. We got Aaron in the chat and Jolie. Both of the mod squad are here. Thank you all so much. Mad Max, Slava Ukraini, indeed. Steve from across the pond. We got Molly, not the drug, but the user. We got Josh. Alton Gillespie, good to see you. Progressively Independent, another Liberal Danimal. I said Alton already. Big Hook from the Great White North. Roxanne, another Liberal Danimal. Jackie, Alan Drifter. Hey, Alan, good to see you. What's up? Long time no see. Chris. I think I've got everybody right now. You know, we got 16 viewers already. That's not bad. I will probably be talking about this a couple of times. We got Orvillaby over in the Twitch chat as well, along with half of the mod squad, Aaron, over there. So I will be talking about this a couple times probably today, just as a reminder. But I usually, as we do, occasionally we get new game sponsorships over on my nerdydan.com stream, which airs Tuesday nights, typically just on twitch.tv/nerdydan.com. Excuse me, I had some seafood tonight. It was quite salty, so I'm sure I'll be downing that water right quick. So anyway, so I have pinned the game link. Both to the YouTube chat and to the Twitch chat, actually it's not even the game link. I've linked the I've linked at the top of the page. I should probably edit that to maybe make it more clear. But it's a game called Matchmasters. It's a 30-day it's 30 days for the promotion, so y'all have 30 days to do everything you want to do. And I've basically explained everything you need on the nerdydan.com link that I've pinned to both of there. And the link is the top link on top of, you know, top of the text of the post there. Basically says I've selected a new game to play in order to help the show. It's free to download. There's never any requirement to pay anything. The game is Matchmasters. If you use my code, you can help out with my streams. It's a mobile game, not a PC, so you have to play it on your cell. Basically, it's a matching game where you're kind of match jewels together or whatever. If you click on over there, you'll see that I think you get like 50 trophies a game. I'm up to like, I started playing last night. I'm already up to 1,000. So it's not that difficult to get that up, but I haven't really played that much. So, you earn 100 trophies, which are like 2 games. You get $2 per new user. And I already have 5 people who've done that. You have earned 300 trophies. You get $3 per user. I've already had 4 people that do that. I've had 2 people who've gotten up to 500 and then 1,000, whatever, and it goes all the way up to 60,000 trophies. If you actually play the game all the way that much over the course of 30 days, you get 60,000 trophies without paying anything. You don't have to. That would be like just over $190 that you could get me on the stream. First 8 people to do it. That will help me get almost $200 per person, simply for playing a game for free. Here's the kicker. A lot of the time, some people are generous, and I appreciate the generosity of people who buy me a cider, people who donate become a Liberal Dan patron, who become a subscriber on Twitch, who paid subscriber on Twitch. Amazon Prime gives it to you for free. If you become a Liberal Danimal or gift Liberal Danimal memberships, if you get super chats, all those different ways to help out the channel, I very much appreciate it. But let's say you were to do a $8 super chat. That $8 super chat would get me maybe like $4, maybe $5. I'm not exactly sure what the exact split is, but I'm not getting all of it. If you were to download this game and not pay a single penny, not play a single game, and you were to buy me an buy yourself an $8 pack in the game, the first 8 people to do that get me $23. So $8 paid to this game, buying whatever it is, a particular $8 pack, so $8 and above, gets me $23. I'm getting 3 times the amount of almost 3 times the amount of what you pay towards that individual pack, just simply by you playing a game and maybe playing like a round or 2 just to show up the menu, whatever. $8 does that. $4 gets me 10. And then if you do play the game and if you get up to 3,800 trophies, that's $46 per new user. So 20 gets me 46, 8 gets me 23, 4 gets me 10. I don't know at this point, because I haven't gotten up to 3,800 trophies yet. I don't know if that's the case. If getting the 20 gets you the 8 and the 4 as well, and you get that huge bump, I will be testing that out once I get to $3,800. I will be doing it myself personally, just to get that done. If not, I'll let you know as well. But this is one of the ways to get the most bang for your buck by contributing and helping out to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk From Life That's Right, or in this case, nerdydan.com. But it's basically, both of the things are under the Liberal Dan LLC umbrella. So by helping Nerdy Dan, you help Liberal Dan Radio. And by helping both, you help me and my family. So again, I appreciate everybody, for doing that. I don't want to waste too much time talking about games. We'll bring it up once or twice again, but maybe during this show, and I'm sure I'll bring it up over the course of the next 30 days. But since, y'all are here, just check out the painting, download the game, play a little bit. For the people who want to pay for free, it's free. For the people who would normally donate money to the show, yeah, I need to fix that link real quick, because the link to the game is basically that first sentence, the first paragraph, because it's not letting me do see, click this link to download game. There we go. That's a little better. And we can do it one more time and edit something else real quick. Click this link to download Match Masters. There we go. Now, if you refresh the page, it'll be a lot clearer. Actually, I have to update it first. There you go. Now, if you click the page, you'll be able to see it better. So, let's see. Just make sure that's right. Yep. There we go. Oh, that's not real. I have a typo there as well, of course. Close. It is a mobile game, not a PC. Update. There you go. Now it looks a little better. Editing things on the fly. Huzzah. So, I've also personally speaking, I've also discussed how I've done some writing contest. Yes, Alton. Yes, Chris. I'm sorry, I said Alton because it's all AL. I thought it was Alton Drifter, or Alton Gillespie, not Alan Drifter. Yes, I did see that. I'll talk about that in a little bit because I can't get the full context of it, and he's claiming that it's something else, that he's not actually citing it to say that what he wants to do. He's citing it based on what other people he's claiming on doing. So we'll talk about that a little bit today with the whole thing with bringing up Goebbels. And how that was brought up in the middle of Congress. He wants us to give him the benefit of the doubt, I guess, by him saying that he's talking about what other people are doing. However, I have no reason to give somebody who dead names trans people or who misgenders trans people. I think he's done both. I think he used wrong pronouns. You said gentleman instead of gentlewoman. He used the senator or the congressperson? Senator. I think it's whatever. He used that representative's, that congressperson's from Delaware, used her incorrect name, I think called her by her dead name. So I am unwilling to give him the benefit of the doubt. However, I do want to report things correctly. So I am assuming that Mr. Self is being a dickwad until proven otherwise. But I'll look it up and I'll try and find more information on it on top of what he said and what he's done already. But as it stands right now, he quoted Goebbels in a congressional hearing, and now afterwards he's saying he was trying to say that it was what the other side was doing, i.e. our side was doing, not his side was doing. But, maybe you could find, regardless of who you're citing, maybe, if you're not somebody who's Jewish, and if you're on the side of frickin' Nazis, if you're on the side of Elon Musk, who gives Nazi salutes in the middle of, conventions or speeches or whatever, if you're in the middle of, people who are deporting people without due process, that want to, ship people off to labor prisons, if you're supporting a president who scapegoats entire religions, maybe you shouldn't be quoting Goebbels just to play it safe. You shouldn't be quoting people in Adolf Hitler's staff just to play it safe. Just to be, maybe I won't bring that up just to avoid the possibility that people are going to misconstrue or construe what I'm saying. Anyway, let's see. Alan Drifter, benefit of the doubt. I doubt he's human. He's a troll. He's a cave troll. I'm offended. You're my favorite cave troll. Let's see. Jeff, Storm's here today. News said take cover in basement if possible. Also put small kids in car seats. What the hell would you take a kid out and leave him in the car? Yes. Well, you should always keep your kid in the car seat, regardless of whatever they're doing. Shower, bathtub, toilet, tornado, hurricane. Just put them in a car seat, right? Anyway. But we didn't even have storms here, and we lost power. We lost power at about 12:15, 12:30-ish. And they say you're not supposed to open up your refrigerator, or during that, we didn't. And they say, you're supposed to keep your food in the fridge for, no more than 4 hours. Once it hits 4 hours, it's no longer safe to eat. So I had messaged Aaron, and I said, look, I may not be able to have a podcast because at 2, they said the power would be fixed at 4. However, it's now 4:05, and now they're saying it's 6. So we may not have a podcast. I'm just warning you ahead of time, just in case we need to deal with this and we have to either postpone, suspend, or do whatever on tonight's podcast. 3 minutes later, I got a text from Entergy saying, your power's back on. So fortunately, it does not look like we'll have to throw out our food. Fortunately, we're able to have the podcast tonight. And the reason I didn't notice it until like 5:30 because we decided to just go out to eat instead of waiting around for the power to come on, and eating at home. So, Suzanne, I dread hurricane season. Oh, hurricane season is going to be a doozy, that's for sure. Why? Because they're screwing with the NOAA, they're screwing with the National Weather Service, they're screwing with all of the federal agencies that are usually used to help us out, especially people in direct eye of the hurricane, not eye, but in direct line of threat of the path of the storm, in the cone of uncertainty, if you will. I'm not used to saying cone of uncertainty in April. But, it is what it is. Wait, I'm sorry, that's Trump's line. I don't mean to...
It is what it is.
I don't mean to step all over Donald Trump figuratively, at least. Did he mistake Goebbels for a gerbil? If he did, I wonder if it was shaved.
Oh, my.
Anyway. Boebert thought it was gobbles. Yeah, well, that's what Gogurt likes to do in the middle of Beetlejuice plays. Gobble down some stuff, right? So, we don't slut shame here on Liberal Dan Radio, but we do hypocrisy shame. And, she's sitting there doing that in a theater with a whole bunch of kids. Hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite, as the host of the Most Nimbus Yosh says, from the smooth sounds of the formerly Percy podcast. Who knows when he's going to come back? Hopefully he'll be back. Hopefully he'll be back on the air soon. So, let's see what to talk about. Let's do this first, because this was hilarious. Let's switch over to the alternate and then start recording. Bring this back over here. So, we have this page right here. AmericanQuarter.us about. AmericanQuarter.us. American in Spirit and Character for immediate release. April 1st, 2025. A new chapter for a proud city, the French Quarter, renamed the American Quarter. We are proud to announce a bold new chapter for the great state of Louisiana and the iconic city of New Orleans. Beginning today, by executive order of Jeff Landry, governor, the historic district formerly known as the French Quarter will officially be recognized as the American Quarter. For too long, our nation has most cherished and beloved destinations have been carried a name that does not reflect its true character. Though its streets echo with colonial past, the heart and soul of this district are unmistakably American. It is a place shaped not only by its architecture, but by the enduring spirit of liberty, resilience, and unity that defines the United States of America. Kudos on them for using the Oxford comma as well. Big props on that. Let's make this a little bit bigger so we can see. Let's see. The American Quarter is more than a name. It is a statement of pride. It is a tribute to the values that unite us as a people, freedom, diversity, and progress, and a reaffirmation that the district belongs to not just history, but a strong, united America. Under Governor Landry's leadership, this renaming is not simply cosmetic. It is deeply symbolic. It reclaims the quarter as a proud American landmark, ensuring that when visitors from across the country and the world walk its storied streets, they know they are standing in a place that reflects the full vibrancy of American life. As part of this initiative, all French and Spanish street names in the district will be updated with American-centric alternatives. Most of the streets that are named after, Spanish and French words or names or whatever are not pronounced the correct way anyway, so what difference would it make if this was legit? The public is encouraged to participate in this patriotic endeavor by submitting street name suggestions beginning today at AmericanQuarter.us. New naming guidelines will also be distributed to all departments within City Hall, submitted to the Domestic Names Committee of the U.S. Board on Geographic Names, yada, yada, yada. When you visit the great state of Louisiana and the dynamic city of New Orleans, we look forward to welcoming you to the American Quarter, a destination that is not only rich in culture, but fully American in spirit. We thank Governor Jeff Landry for his unwavering commitment to patriotism and his visionary leadership in making this renaming a reality. To learn more about the American Quarter and submit your ideas for new street names, please visit the American Quarter, AmericanQuarter.us. As you can see, I'm smiling. I'm not angry about this because obviously the fact that it was released yesterday, it was released on April 1st, 2025, clearly shows that it is a, April Fool's Day joke. If you haven't realized that by now, it was an April Fool's Day joke. And people were like, well, how do you know? There was a press release. And people were actually trying to argue with me on Facebook groups. I'm usually not one to want to, I don't yuck people's yums. That includes, I don't try and jump in and when people are trying to fool other people with, April Fool's jokes, if they're not like the horrible ones, I typically like to watch people, get that done, and see how it unfurls, see how many people can be gotten on April Fool's Day, knowing full well that it's April Fool's Day and you really shouldn't believe. Now, one of the best things about April Fool's Day, or best things about good April Fool's Day jokes or pranks or whatever, is that they're plausible. They seem like it's something that could have happened, but it's still just a little bit out there that it didn't. The fact that we have a president who renamed the Gulf of Mexico obviously is what sparked this, and obviously shows that this sort of thing is a plausible thing that MAGA conservatives might do. However, when people were trying to argue with me on Facebook groups yesterday that this was not a joke, that this was legit, and use this website right here, to prove that it was not a prank and not an April Fool's joke, all I had to do was simply do a who is lookup on this website to see who created it. I got the name. I'm not putting the name out there, but I'm not even giving the full address out there. But you can do it yourself. You can do a who is lookup on, I'll just put in who is search and then type in americanquarter.us, and you'll see the address of whatever entity or person was using to create this site. And the address, when you type that into Google and look at Google Maps and see where it points or what the street view is, the address is for a local chain of stores that generate funny t-shirts. And somebody even in one of these groups was like, hey, I thought this would be a Dirty Coast thing. I was like, funny you should say that, because if you look up and do a who is lookup on this website and you find the address and you look up what address that is, it specifically is the address of the Dirty Coast location on Magazine Street. So kudos to Dirty Coast for coming up with this great little April Fool's Day prank, because not only did it get people and it convinced people, but it's plausible, because people are like, well, if we have an idiot as a president who is more than willing to rename the Gulf of Mexico into something stupid, clearly one of his, sycophants, one of his lower level, supporters, i.e. Governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, is bound to be wanting to do something similar. It's plausible that he would want to do that. So kudos to him. Kudos to them, I should say, for getting this done, for fooling a few people, and using the stupidity and ridiculousness of the whole Gulf of America thing to at least get some laughs in this time of strife and terror and the dystopian hellscape that is the country of United States of America during the Donald Trump presidency. Anyway, what do you think? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe. And unless you thought this was real or would have supported it if it was real, have a good day. Anyway, so yeah, I was cracking up over this thing. It was hilarious. So, where is the new America going to be? Maybe I might be on board going there. New America is probably what? It's going to be in Greenland? Oh, I'm sorry, red, white, and blue land? Apparently I think, according to Andrea, I think Andrea said that Hal Sparks or Nerd Halen is going to perform in Greenland. I don't know if that was an April Fool's Day joke or not. If that was an April Fool's Day joke, that's awesome too. Shout out for that as well. Anyway. Yeah, Aaron West, is this an April Fool's Day joke? Yes, it is. It was absolutely one, obviously. Or as we now know. Let's see. That might not have been the right time to go on holiday out of the country. Oh, I must have missed that one or whatever. Speaking of April Fool's Day jokes, let's see. Back in the day, during the COVID-19 pandemic, when we were all, quarantining, when responsible people at least were quarantining at home, One of the things that I did was I told the children that April Fool's Day was changed to April 5th because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And then I went into my Alexa settings and I changed so I set it up so if somebody says, Alexa, when is April Fool's Day? I'm sorry for all of those who have Alexa right now. Alexa would respond, April Fool's Day is April 5th because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So when I told them that and they questioned me and I was like, ask Alexa. They asked Alexa and Alexa proved me right. Basically the more high-tech version of altering a Wikipedia page to prove a claim that you're making. And they were like, what? That's ridiculous. And they could not believe that I was right, but it was an April Fool's Day prank. Mad Max, sorry, having a different conversation with, hey, look, you can talk about whatever you want in the chat. I mean, I'd love for you to interact with me or whatever, but if y'all want to talk about whatever topics you want to talk about, that just helps the algorithm, and as we all know, Al Gore needs more rhythm. So, one of the other April Fool's Day pranks that my best one, I didn't share any of them on Facebook this year or whatever because, again, I don't want to remind people that it's April Fool's Day just in case somebody's coming up with a funny, clever one or whatever. Back when I used to be an Uber driver, I think this was, it might have been full time, but it might have been while I was part time still because I think I was working right next door to them, and I basically told my boss, I told my boss, I was like, look, I want to go to this hearing, is that okay? It's right next door, and I'll come back right afterwards. They're like, sure, no problem. So the cab drivers were legitimately suing the drivers of Uber and Lyft, I think Uber specifically, because they thought that we were driving illegally, and they thought they would make a class action lawsuit to go after us. And I was like, what? To me, I always thought a class action lawsuit, or most class action lawsuits, are a class of people suing, not suing a class of people. So they basically said they named 10 drivers, I'm putting 5, but 10. They put 10 drivers out there on the thing, and they also said all other drivers who are similarly situated, i.e. any driver who's driving for Uber or Lyft and doesn't have a Class D license. So I sat there through the entire hearing, trying to see where it went. They did rule that the taxi cab drivers had standing to bring the suit, but they postponed the hearing for anything else. But instead of reporting that to my Facebook page, I said, well, apparently you can no longer drive for Uber if you live in the city of New Orleans, simply because of the fact that they just made a ruling that Uber drivers can't drive unless they have a chauffeur's, i.e. Class D license. And I made it sound completely plausible. And then everybody's just all asking me these questions in the comment section, and I'm just responding back or whatever, this, that, the other. And all of a sudden, I was like, and I shouldn't have to say this, but April Fools. And one person, I think everybody stopped conversing at that point, but except for one person who was like, I thought this might be an April Fool's Day prank, but it sounded plausible. I'm like, well, that's the best April Fool's Day jokes are plausible, right? So I even got my wife. I even told my wife, I said, look, I'm going to do this April Fool's Day joke afterwards. If it turns out, if it doesn't come against us, I'm still going to say that it is as an April Fool's Day joke, and I managed to still get her. I guess that means she doesn't listen to me all the time. Why would you? Nobody wants to listen to me. Who's Liberal Dan, right? So, anyway, that was amusing. April Fool's is borderline the purge for Liberal Dan. Wait, what? I don't know what that means. But yeah, hey, it's Impeccable Living.
Oh my.
Good to see you, Impeccable Living. Hope you're having a good, fun day. Let's see. Somebody says, why can't I see Highlander comments? Oh, Steve is Highlander. Okay. Yes, because there can be only one. Maybe I should have used that one instead of, if it's not Scottish, it's crap. There can be only one. Or I could do the Sean Connery impression and say there can be only one. When we were talking about impressions the other day, I afterwards I realized I should have done my Sean Connery accent, especially from like Hunt for Red October. Be careful what you shoot at. Most things in here don't react too well to bullets. So that's one of my impressions I can do okay, unlike my Christopher Walken, which sucks. I do have an idea, though, that on my Nerdy Dan station or channel or whatever, YouTube channel, I might want to do something like try and do a step-by-step thing of me trying to get a Christopher Walken accent done and just have it be a complete failure the entire time. And just maybe that will draw more people in. I don't know. And maybe that'll get people in here to actually say how to do one better. Because I don't know. But we're not going to go on. We're not going to continue with that one on this show. But that might be something that I might want to do at some point in the future. All right. Have a good one, Chris. Enjoy dinner. Anyway, that was the American Quarter thing. That was hilarious. Excuse me. Apparently, this was updated on April 2nd of 2025, so I don't believe that it's not true. Trump tells Inner Circle that Elon Musk will be leaving soon. The president is pleased with Elon Musk, and the decision comes as the tech mogul increasingly looks like a political liability. President Trump has told his Inner Circle, including members of his cabinet, that Elon Musk will be stepping back in the coming weeks from his current role as governing partner, ubiquitous cheerleader, and Washington Hatchman. Politico did not use the Oxford comma there. Shame on Politico for not using an Oxford comma. President remains pleased with Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency. That's not a department. But both men have decided in recent days it'll soon be time for Musk to return to his business and take on a supporting role. Now's the time to say goodbye to Nazis like you and me. ELOMUSKISNAZI. Elon Musk is Nazi. Anyway, so yeah, apparently Musk is going bye-bye, not soon enough, and but clearly because of the harm that he's already done as head of Doge. So impeccable living. I'm drinking Moscow Mules. Are you actually drinking Moscow Mules, or is that a euphemism for hooking up with Russians?
Oh my.
Anyway, sorry, had to go there. Let's see. Let's just scan to see if we've missed. If I've met anybody, if I've missed anybody, I do apologize that there is a lot of scrolling that's been going on. Again, just a brief reminder, check out the pinned post on YouTube and Twitch. New game sponsorship. I go up into all the details of how to help the show in the game sponsorship there. Free to play, but also if you're thinking of giving me a super chat, super sticker, anything that doesn't, even a Venmo, you give me $5 as friends and family, I get $5. You give me $8 on you purchase something in this game that you download for $8, I get $23. Much more bang for the buck. First 8 people at least. So it's the best way to help. So if you have a question as to whether or not you're still one of the first 8, I will let you know if you email me. So let's see. Impeccable living. Ha ha ha. I've never been with a Russian that I know of. I don't always know who's behind me. Look, I think Russian would be very happy to be with you. A Russian would know how to keep warm and cold. You know what I'm saying? So find Russian in wintertime. Maybe not summertime, but find Russian in wintertime. They keep you warm in the cold Siberian nights. Da? Anyway. See, Paul Rudd and Seth Meyers did a day drinking segment. Too funny, worth a watch. I'll have to check that out. So, hey, Krista, good to see you. Thank you for joining. I don't know if I said hello to Janelle yet, but hello, Janelle. Thank you. Jackie as well. We're starting to get the J squad in. Good to see all the J's hanging out. J is my middle name. Literally. J-A-Y is my middle name. So, yes, when I can say J is my middle name, J is absolutely my middle name. So, let's see. Suzanne, I'm sure the first thought was, what a nice boy, and at some point that opinion changed dramatically. I guess talk about you, or I don't know. Maybe talk about me. Oh, see, as a teen, I'd pull up next to old ladies and tell them their Johnson bar was falling under their car. Let them worry about what I try on. Nice. Good job. Of course, I'm using my What Day Is It Hump Day shirt today that I had gotten. I rarely get the opportunity to use it, especially since I started working from home, where I usually typically don't even remember to bother to put that on because I'm just wearing a junky t-shirt around the house. But, you know, it's a fun shirt to wear, so I'll wear it. But speaking about one of the reasons that why Elon Musk might want to be stepping down, let's see. Let's pull this. A couple of things to bring up when it comes to the. Did I download one for that? I did not do that one. So no, we're just going to keep this one on. I have another one for another one, for another video that I planned because oh my goodness, the bottom of the also is just blew my mind. So let's see. Liberal J. Dan the Zimmerman. Yeah, exactly. That's my full name, Josh. That's my government name. Anyway, so we had the Wisconsin Supreme Court race yesterday. Conservatives are making a big stink about their wins in Florida. Their wins included losing ground in 2 safe Republican districts. You know, Gates and Waltz both tried to move on and be members of the Donald Trump cabinet. Only Waltz was successful because people didn't want Pizzagates out there, especially with all his shenanigans, so to speak, that he's taken part in. But the idea that somehow the MAGA made great gains yesterday by winning 2 seats that everyone was expecting them to win, but won them in with turnout that wasn't as good for them as they expected. I mean, the person who was, I guess, in the lead for a while, eventually lost, made a huge surge in, you know, overall votes for the Republican versus her. But the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, you know, the Republican was backed and supported by Elon Musk. He donated people who voted in that election, or he gave $1 million, I guess, to 2 people from his PAC or whatever. He has, I guess, because he's an independent distributor of cars, apparently there's some rule in Wisconsin that prohibits Teslas from being sold, and I think Elon Musk is suing the state of Wisconsin in order to be able to sell Teslas in the state of Wisconsin. And, well, you know, that seems to be a little bit of a conflict of interest there. I might actually agree with the premise of the Elon Musk lawsuit as a general principle, that just because it's an independent distributor of a car and not going through a dealership, that shouldn't preclude people from being able to buy the cars. Now, I'm not going to cry a river over Teslas not being able to be sold over there, but the general principle of the thing, I might agree with that, but that doesn't mean you go buy an election. But he didn't buy an election. He wasted a whole bunch of money on an election that he lost. And this guy is supposed to be the head of, or at least temporarily, of the Department of Government Efficiency. This guy just spent millions of dollars and lost. That's not very efficient of you, is it? Nope, not one bit. So kudos to Judge Crawford, who defeated Brad Schimmel by 10 points. It's a 10-point win that Judge Susan Crawford had, being described as a decisive victory, giving the Supreme Court a 4-3 Democratic majority, despite the fact that the legislature is still Republican because of gerrymandering. You can see more on that, I think, at least in some of my Stop the Coup videos. I don't know if the Stop the Coup videos are still up. I might have to take them down because that whole thing that I was trying to do with it is no longer a thing. So, but anyway, she wins, but there's also something else that was passed that day. And I also wanted to talk about this because this is not just about her winning. A voter ID piece of legislation that would take the existing ID law in the state of Wisconsin and promote it to being a constitutional amendment in the state of Wisconsin. Right? So, and that passed. That also passed resoundingly. I think it needed 60% to pass. It got the 60% that it needed to pass. And here's the thing. We're going to take a look at the text of the law, and we'll discuss why it's not necessarily a horrible thing. Now, let's just, this being said, the vast majority of any crimes that are committed relating to election, like election fraud, voter fraud, or whatever, hardly any, if any of them, will be fixed by requiring a voter ID. Most places have ID laws already, but the amount of fraud that is done by somebody not having a valid ID is infinitesimal, and there is no evidence to show that anybody has swayed an election one way or the other because they didn't have a proper ID or they weren't properly allowed to vote. Why? Because of risk versus rewards. The risk of harm to yourself, the risk of imprisonment and fines or whatever you might get after getting caught for committing an act of election or voter fraud is not worth the amount of votes that you cast versus the chance of that one vote making a difference, or that additional vote, or those additional votes making a difference. Now, there are elections where one vote has been the difference. I think one vote was the reason why we have the American eagle as our national bird instead of the turkey. That's at least what I recall. But that being said, I take no issue generally with the idea of show an ID to vote. Go up, show an ID to vote. Mexico does it, but Mexico does it by giving everybody a free ID and letting them use that to go vote. The problem with most of these so-called voter ID laws is that they include other provisions that do not contain anything that has to do with the requirement to show an ID to prove who you are. And the Republicans who pass these laws know that their supporters are gullible enough to think that just because it's called a voter ID law, that everything in that law pertains to voter ID. The North Carolina law specifically that was tossed out because the judge found that the Republican-controlled legislature targeted black voters of the state of North Carolina with such surgical precision. Like, they actually did a study on all the different ways that people cast ballots in the state of Wisconsin and only nixed the ones that were utilized by mostly by black voters. That's ridiculous, and that's racist, and that's an attempt to disenfranchise and make it harder for one class of people to vote as opposed to the other class of people to vote. Which is why I've always said, on this show and other places, if the Republicans would just pass a simple, standalone piece of legislation, or just present a standalone piece of legislation to the voters that would only require a voter ID, that it would pass. Because most voters would be like, yeah, you know what? There's nothing wrong with the idea in principle. The thing that's wrong with the idea is everything else that gets shoved into those bills. So, this piece of legislation is 11 lines long. 2025, let's see. There's more lines before it just kind of describing what's going on. But basically, that resolved that the foregoing proposed amendment to the Constitution be submitted to a vote of the people at the election to be held on the first Tuesday of April in 2025, and be it further resolved that the questions concerning ratification in the foregoing proposed amendment to the Constitution be stated on the ballot as follows. Question 1. Photographic identification for voting. Shall Section 1M of the Article 3 of the Constitution be created to require that voters present a valid photographic identification verifying their identity in order to vote in any election, subject to the exceptions which may be established by law? And those exceptions that may be established by law could very well be something like we do in Louisiana, where if you don't have a voter ID, but you have all the documentation that would be required to get yourself a voter ID and get yourself registered to vote or whatever, you can bring that information in to vote and still cast a ballot. Like, I think you need, if you have your birth certificate and 2 forms of bills or something, you can bring those in and be like, boom, there you go. And of course, Donald Trump's addition to that to try and make it where you have to use a birth certificate. You can't use something else. You have to have your marriage license if you're a woman or whatever. You know, that adds on additional complexities that are not needed. But if I'm fine with doing what Mexico does. For example, Mexico says everybody gets a free ID, and then you could use that ID to cast a ballot. Nothing wrong with that, because the government's paying for it. There's no additional cost out of your pocket. So it's not a poll tax. If the government is giving it to you, the effort that's required to do it is slim to none. Let's do it like that. And also, I have, a video on the top 10 things about arguments, with dealing with voter ID. Just if things like this, if we were to say this is okay and let's pass these things, you take it off the table. You take the whole issue off the table, and then you disallow the Republicans from doing the things like they tried to do in North Carolina, where they put in other ballot measures. So, but there's an additional thing here that's interesting. There's an additional thing here that's interesting, and this is part of a this discussion that I had on Facebook, and this is an example of me calling my shot. I've done this before, and I'll do it again. In fact, one of the things I think I've realized that I'm upset about is there was an example of me calling my shot with Jeff Carrera on WGSO, and I wish it's probably still on my old laptop. I probably have to pull it off. It was on Blog Talk Radio, and well, it's now gone with the way of the dodo, because Blog Talk Radio is no longer a thing. But here is a screenshot. I've blanked out the names as best as possible. And this guy was very excited about the fact that Wisconsin passed voter ID. Next election should be interesting. That is, if the Democrats allow the will of the people to stand, we will see. If they are true to form, they'll try and use that slim 4-3 to overturn it, like they've tried elsewhere. Democracy be damned. Now, of course, democracy be damned is a silly statement, because you don't have the ability or the right to vote for something that would be unconstitutional. Now, it's hard to say that you can't say that something that's in the state constitution now violates the state constitution, but it's very well possible that you could pass constitutional amendments to your state constitutions that would violate the federal constitution. So if it's possible that such a thing that was passed would violate the federal constitution, the voters of the state of Wisconsin don't have the power or the authority to override the Constitution. It would be like, let's say I ran for president, and I would never do this if I was a candidate for president. If I ran for president and I said, I'm going to sign an executive order to return us to chattel slavery, and the people were like, let's vote for Dan. Yes, vote for Dan. We like what Dan has to say, including that. And let's say I win the election with so many votes, and I have a mandate to do whatever it is that I want to do. And I sign an executive order saying chattel slavery is now legal. These idiot Republicans, these MAGA morons, would say, or if they were on my side at the time, would say, well, this is the will of the people, so clearly he should be able to do it. And if a judge were to stop Dan, let's say I was conservative Dan, if a judge were to stop Dan from implementing this executive order, what he ran on as when he ran for president, then they would be going against the will of the people. Well, guess what? The will of the people, it doesn't matter if they're trying to get you to do something that is blatantly unconstitutional. The will of the people. Let's say we have a candidate who wants to end drinking again and ban and go back to prohibition. Well, prohibition is unconstitutional. But if we had a president that wanted to sign an executive order that did that, or that ran on that, and the people voted for him and then he tried to do it, these idiot Republicans would say, oh, he's an activist judge. He's a liberal activist judge going after our president who's trying to, do what we elected him to do. You can't vote for somebody to elect them to do something that is going to violate the Constitution. It just doesn't happen that way. But back to me calling my shot. So here we go. I say, I guess to make it larger, I would have voted for the amendment. Why? Because I don't oppose voter ID requirements. Most people don't oppose the requirement to show ID to vote, even though the amount of fraud that would be prevented by these laws is infinitesimal. The problem with these so-called voter ID laws, like they passed in North Carolina previously, again, because they contained other provisions related to a requirement to show an ID. In the North Carolina law specifically, the court determined that the GOP legislature specifically targeted black voters in those other provisions to make it harder for them to cast a legal ballot. But 90% plus of the time, I say all of these things, and some moron will ask me, what's wrong with requiring an ID? Enter moron. I agreed to the last couple of sentences. You are stating that black people are incapable of getting an ID? That's racist. If not, why don't they have a legal ID? Why are these people so stupid? Why are they so stupid and so predictable? If he read the last 3 sentences, he would know that I was predicting exactly what he was going to do. And he did it anyway. Like, you're a moron if you say that what's wrong with requiring an ID or something similar to that effect, and then he did it in the very next response. So I go down further. Blah, blah, blah. There's no evidence today for ID laws to be unfair to blacks. A, you're supposed to capitalize black whenever referring to race. That's a typical style guide thing. But B, if you're still calling black people blacks, that just proves to me that you're racist. Yada, yada, yada. So I go, please reread what I wrote. The portions of the North Carolina bill that caused to be thrown out were the provisions other than the ID requirement, i.e. it was not a requirement that I was talking about. I even predicted that you do what you did before you did it, and you still did it. That's because y'all are predictably and willfully ignorant. In my next response, I also thanked him for giving me some good show content for my podcast tonight. So there you have it. And this is not the first time. If you go look at either, because I have 2 Facebook pages, I'm trying to use the facebook.com/liberaldanradio more often, but over on facebook.com/liberaldan itself, I also have several examples where I call my shots, where I took screen captures of people where I said, some idiot's going to do X, and then they do X, and it's always on this same issue. And this is what makes me mad. Not that they're stupid, not that they're ignorant, not that they're dumb or lazy or uninformed, but it's the fact that these dumb, stupid, lazy, uninformed people are able to join together in big numbers and still accomplish shit, like winning elections. These people are this close to drooling on themselves. They're so predictably dumb. Yet, they still manage to win. And it's frustrating. So what do you think? Do you agree with me that voter IDs are not going to change any amount of significant voter fraud, but yet I have no problem with putting them in anyway to get the topic out of the hands of the Republicans and stop the Republicans from using them to be able to shove in other deplorable things into legislation and fool their voters into thinking that all they're voting for is a voter ID requirement? Or do you disagree with me? Do you still think that I'm saying that voter ID laws that there's nothing wrong with voter ID and that you have to prove to me? Like, I guarantee you, like, here's a prediction. This is a video that I'm making, right? I'm making this video. I will almost guarantee you that there'll be at least one conservative out there who responds to this video that I'm making right here and will respond, what's wrong with requiring an ID? And not do it ironically. And when that happens, I want every one of y'all to respond to that person with a laughing emoji or whatever. Because, again, they're predictably stupid. So anyway, leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and unless you still think that I have a problem with the voter ID and you want to say what's wrong with the voter ID, or you're a Nazi, have a good day. That went longer than I expected. It would. I have to start recording this again. Just because Chad in the chat, what's wrong with requiring an ID? Chad in the chat just now says, what's wrong with requiring an ID? I know you're being funny. I appreciate the joke. Thank you for the laugh. Well done, Chad. Very well played. Let's go back through. Oh, don't even joke about that, Liberal Dan. I need my booze. I mean, I guess certain things go down easier with booze.
Oh my.
Hey, Janelle. Let's see. Okay, so we've already been there. let's go back. Liberal, we already saw that too. Shakira's song being played in the warehouse. I love her. Which Shakira song is it? The funny thing is, I remember when people were talking about, I think some conservative made a post about Shakira law and not wanting Shakira law, or maybe it was just a meme that people made making fun of conservatives wanting Sharia law and saying Shakira law instead. I'm like, I'm ready for Shakira law whenever, wherever. Anyway, I know that's not good enough to get a copyright flag. So let's see. Big Hook, Jeff, urine inspiration. Wait, what? You're an inspiration? Was that an autocorrect fail, or are you just trying to make a Uranus joke along with the urine, whatever? See, hedge enemy, that's where it went all wrong. Wait, hedge enemy. Hold on. You're never gonna be able to watch Dirty Rotten Scoundrels again and be able to and hear that and watch that scene and then be able to be like, oh, you'll oh wait, hold on. Darn it. Okay, paused. Good. we weren't ready for that video to play yet. Let's see. Someone asked me if I was a liquid engineer when I was talking about making wine. I said, well, I do pee if that's what you mean. I guess everybody is a liquid engineer in that case, right? To Josh, isn't Trump afraid of eagles and pineapples and soup cans? Eagles, you know what to do. Exactly. He was very like about the about that. There'll be some meme, I guess, that could be made with me doing like this. Challenge: make the funniest meme of a screenshot of me doing. Take your screenshot now. Anyway, see, Ellie Mistel says no voter ID should be required as the voter fraud is insignificant as a voter deterrent and poll tax on poor black people. That's why it should be available for free. One of the problems with the North Carolina law was that it charged black voters, it didn't just charge black voters, but it would charge people who were poor $5 to have to get a voter ID that, you know, if you didn't have a driver's license, you would have to pay $5 to get that ID. And that's poll tax if you have to pay money to get the ID. In Louisiana, shockingly enough, if you don't have a voter ID, if you don't have a voter ID, you can get one for free. It doesn't cost you anything. You can just get a voter ID for free. Or you could just show up to the election with the stuff that you would normally use to get a voter ID and prove that you are who you are and then be able to fill out a ballot. Either way works. So, but the problem is it takes the issue out of the hands of the Republicans. It stops them from being able to do that. And all for, you know, we should also be doing things to help people get those IDs. Just like I said, we need to do what Mexico does. And even one of those fools in that conversation, might have been the same fool, said, Mexico requires a voter ID. I'm like, yes, Mexico does. And they give it for free. And y'all don't like that because that's not what you really want. Y'all really don't care about election integrity. All y'all care about is stopping people who you don't like from voting. So, let's see. What if you need to take a bus to a polling place? Post offices will be closed so you can get your mail back. Postmark, I would actually do blah, blah, blah. We need to sue the GQP and oligarchs for putting us through this crapola. There should definitely be a good civil lawsuit to be made over the stress and pain and suffering caused by Elon Musk. And he has trillions of dollars of wealth to be able to sue. So let's sue Elon Musk, right? Where we talked about the Moscow Mules. I'm not allowed to drink alcohol for 1 year on my new stomach. I'm sorry, Aaron. That sucks. I guess that's the good thing with my Zepbound. With the Zepbound that I'm on, I actually I'm not necessarily restricted from drinking. However, you know, I mean, I guess they would probably tell you not to, but there's no restriction. I probably shouldn't be drinking Coke either when I'm doing it, but I still enjoy my soft drinks every now and then. But even so, let's just throw this out there. I think I talked about this a little bit or spoke about this a little bit on Monday, maybe, but I have an update on my weight things, on the weight issues. And, you know, I know some of y'all have mentioned that you've noticed me slimming down a little bit. At my heaviest, actually, let's roll back. Let's not talk about my heaviest lead. I started taking Zepbound in July, end of July, maybe early August of last year. So it's been about 7 months that I've been taking Zepbound. And then before that, between January and July, I didn't take anything, inclusive. So for that 7 months, I didn't take anything. But then for few months before that, I was on Trulicity for a little bit, and that helped me lose a little bit of weight too. But since the end of July, early August, when I started taking Zepbound, or when it was prescribed to me, it might actually be a little later than that. I might actually have to start looking it up, because I might have been approved for Zepbound in July, but I think we had to deal with the prior authorization issues, so it might have actually been later. But let's just assume it's the end of July. Since then, let's just say I've just finished my last of the 15 pens. I have my next set of 15 pens. So 15 pens, 15 whatever pens, 12 pens, 10 pens, 7.5, 5, 2.5. So that's 6. So it may very well be 6 months ago, not 7 months ago, when I started taking this. I'm down 70 pounds from July, August. Whenever I was weighed at the end of July, I am down 70 pounds from that point. However, if you go back to my absolute heaviest, I'm down a whole 100 pounds. So I feel very good about it. My knee still freaking hurts. So, I would like to lose more weight for me to be able to either get knee surgery or whatever, or to, put less pain on my knees. But that being said, I have lost overall 100 pounds on those 2 medications and 70 pounds on Zepbound. So at least 10 pounds a month on average. However, because I started off at the 2.5 level dose and have every month increased it to 5, 7.5, 10, 12.5, 15, because we've upped the dose, I think more weight has peeled off towards the end. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more drops. If I would like to see where I am May 1st. See where I sit weight-wise May 1st, to see how much more I drop just in this month. But and the way I found out that I actually lost the weight and that my home scale was correct is when I brought Cassie to another doctor's appointment, because she's still going to a bunch, obviously. When I took her to there, I was like, I want to jump on the scale too. And they're like, we just have to turn it on. I was like, boop, let's turn it on, wait for it to zero out. Let's take my weight. And I was like, oh, my home scale's correct. Look at that. So I officially am down 70-something pounds. So let's see. Impeccable living. Obviously, we should have all mail-in voting, but Republicans will never allow that. I mean, that's proof that voter ID is not an issue, because in states with mail-in voting, there's no evidence that the mail-in votes have done anything to cause irreparable harm or any harm to our voting systems. But yes, Krista, instead of making Election Day a holiday, more states should embrace vote by mail. Why not both? So, Michael McAndrews, if the Nazis did it, why can't we require voting IDs or doing mail-in voting? Let's see, Big Hook. Neil deGrasse Tyson had a guy on discussing the guy-brain relationship and the gut biome and the effects of psychedelics coming from there. Interesting. Let's see. Just listening and writing code to run AV-lib functions, which is sort of work. I mean, I do tech IT stuff for work. Makes sense. Fun problems to deal with, right? Let's see, Susan. Where does I turn whatever into the cookie monster after midnight? Nice. Me want cookie. I guess that's one of the better, Sesame Street accents. I mean, you do Grover, it's basically Yoda. I mean, Grover is like, near, far. Yoda, size matters not. Anyway, so Jeff Curry, I've had a crush on Shakira for years, but recently discovered she's really cute. I never looked at her face. Jesus, that's hilarious. So I don't feel like having this debate. I'm far too drunk, and we both agree everyone should be able to vote. Maybe we can turn this another night when I'm not 3 cocktails in. There is a pun there. I don't know if I want to make it, but take away the tails and 3 what's in?
Oh my.
Anyway. See, wow, that is shocking for Louisiana. I know, right? I mean, but I think they did that well before the voter ID thing had ever become a major issue. That's why I think that it's that they did something reasonable, because when it was passed, Republicans were not making this into the big, oh my God, our elections are over. Of course, what Trump wants is all paper ballots with no electronic counting, with no machine counting. So, again, as I did on the last show, what's to stop people from taking the ballots and being like, throwing them away or whatever? Hey, Val's in a van, good to see you. Thank you for joining the show. I'm just getting down to scrolling through the show. They want to voter to identify your party, maybe. And if they do all paper ballots, they can just, oh, these are Democratic ballots. Throw them away. Scott, good to see you, Scott. Thank you for joining the show. Remember to smash that like button and the patriarchy. Let's see. I don't do caffeine, Jeff says, but Uranus is the only place I can find RC Cola in glass bottles, so I have to do that sometimes. I mean, you really shouldn't be stuffing glass bottles in Uranus. That could be very dangerous.
Oh my.
Anyway. So I thought it was like October when you got it all lined out. Wait, what? I don't know what that's talking about. Let's see. Congratulations on the weight loss. Hope you can feel the difference in your everyday life. Keep at it. I mean, my biggest issue right now is my knee, and my knee still hurts. So, you know, we're not there yet, but I could definitely at least look at myself, and I look in the mirror, and I definitely see a difference in my face. Which reminds me back to the old John Pinette joke where John Pinette's like, I lost 100 pounds, and people are like, man, I can really see it in your face. And then before he started saying it, I started laughing because I knew what the punchline was going to be, and I laughed even harder when I was right, because the punchline was, of course, how big was my face? So, let's see, Robin M. Ralph, 70 pounds, 100 pounds, awesome, I want some of that. And the problem is that I know people who need it, who would love to be on Zepbound and can't get on it because some insurance policies still don't cover it. So, Josh, I'm just skinny as hell, my knees hurt, I think it's just age. That also could be, very well be the case. It could be just age. Let's see. Thank you, Josh, for the congratulations. Jeff Curry, I'm trying like hell to gain 10 pounds. Can't do it. Have more RC Cola. But I bet you're another type B blood type, huh? Let's see. Nice to get free measurements as buy cash for your SO's appointment. Oh, yeah. I was like, what? But they didn't do anything. I just did it myself. So, let's see. They don't like it. They want to know what our party officiating is. The problem is, I mean, if you're registered to vote, if you are, like, in reality, your voter ID, like if you have like a regular state-issued ID, it doesn't have your party on the state-issued ID. Your party identification in most states, at least. There are some states where you could register as no party or you don't register with a party, but then when you go in to vote for a primary, that kind of automatically registers you for that primary. That's what goes into the system. Other states, you register as you know, Democrat, Republican, no party, whatever. So, and those voter lists are public information. They are all available. So it doesn't matter if you have a voter ID or not. Anybody can go pay a simple small fee, download the voter lists of everybody in a particular district or just the entire state. You can get that as a zip file. You can open it up, open up the spreadsheet, and there you go. You have everybody's name, address, phone number that you provided to the voter registration to be able to actually, you know, so that's how they text message you, and your party affiliation. So they could be like, oh, I want to, and then they actually know how many times you voted as well on these lists. So let's say they want to do, okay, I want to restrict, I'm going to write a piece of code that I want to look at the voter list of this particular state or this particular district. Let's get everybody from this congressional district, if we're targeting people in Congress. Let's only get people who are Democrats. Let's only get people who have voted in 8 of the 10 last major elections, or maybe 8 of the last 10 overall elections, or maybe just who voted in the last 3 major elections. Whatever it is, you can write your query on that. You can make a database out of that Excel spreadsheet. You can query that. You can run some code to actually read it and find out all those people who check all those boxes. Voter in that district. What party are they in? Are they frequent voters? What's their address? Let's send them a fundraising mailer. So it's all right there in the voter list. So whatever requirement might be for a voter ID wouldn't stop that from happening. So I don't believe that that's necessarily a valid concern when it comes to opposing the requirement to show an ID. because it's already there. Now, again, any amount of election fraud that takes place, none of it's really done with any. If I've done a video where I looked as part of my voter ID thing, I'd have to look it up. So it's somewhere on my channel. I could provide the link later, but I would have to look up the video and find it. But in that video, the Heritage Foundation actually has a good resource on this, shockingly enough, where you can look at the Heritage Foundation, you can look at like the last so many years of the people who have been convicted of, election fraud, voter fraud, etc. And you could, search it and pare it down and find, certain things to meet your there's like tens and tens and tens of thousands of people, I think, on this list, and like maybe at the most 10 were people who were voting as, without an ID, where an ID would have prevented them from doing whatever it is that they wanted to do. Everybody else, nope, it has nothing to do with a voter ID requirement. All the other election-related crimes have to do with something else that has no bearing on whether or not an ID was showed or not. So, Chad Bostic, Senate just voted to roll back Canada tariffs 51-48. Interesting. Will the House do the same? I don't have faith that the House will do the same. Although the House of Representatives did have a couple of Republican turncoats, so to speak, who actually did vote to allow, to block a rule change that would have prevented somebody from having an additional person vote by proxy when that person is home on maternity leave. Because the Republican Party basically just wants to keep people barefoot and pregnant. And I'll remind you, Chad, that you voted for them. Not to pick on you per se or whatever, but this is what people who want people to be barefoot and pregnant do. They make it so that people who get pregnant and have to take leave are harmed by their decisions. What should really happen is if you're a parent, regardless of what your gender is, and regardless of whether or not you had somebody who was born vaginally or via a C-section, or who was born from somebody else that you adopted. However you obtain your baby, legally, of course, you should be able to take parental leave for 8 to 12 weeks. Have that be paid. And it doesn't matter what your gender should be. If you're a same-sex couple, both parents should get it. If you're an opposite-sex couple, both parents should get it. It should have no bearing on gender. But these Republicans don't believe, the Republican elected officials don't believe in women's equality. Hell, half of them probably don't believe, and half of them probably don't believe in women's suffrage. And that's being giving, I think. So, anyway. I scrolled back too far down again. There we go. Jeff Curry, Jackie, new item, hang your hate, guitar picks, that's awesome. Let the people vote, F the election stealing tactics. Well, I agree with you. If I lose 10 more pounds, I will actually weigh what's on my driver's license. I don't have my wallet on me. I would love to be able to tell you how many pounds I need to lose to get to my driver's license weight. It's very well possible that I'm below it right now because I might have been honest the last time. I'll have to see. I'll have to update y'all on that. I need to check that. You've got me curious. Actually, I could probably, while I'm talking, I think I can look it up on my phone. Because I think I have the application that allows you to look it up. Let's see, is it Go? It's not Go Vote. It's Louisiana. Yeah, it is. It's Louisiana Wallet. Although I might have to update it or whatever because I haven't looked at this in for frickin' ever. Well, let's see, tap to view. Hold on. I have to take off my glasses to read this correctly. Hey, look at that. I am below the weight on my driver's license by 6 pounds. That's pretty cool. So thank you for making me look that up, Roxanne, because that just made me feel even better about myself. Because when I initially put that weight, I was not that weight. I was well above the weight, but I didn't feel like 250 because I'm clearly not 250. And, South Park glass tubes and hamsters. Well, that's Four Fingers, try five. Actually, that's a different scene. That's the scene with Mr. Slave. And Lemmy Winks. Man, I haven't seen the Lemmy Winks episode in forever. I haven't watched South Park in a very long time. Oh, Steve, isn't RC Cola a GTA reference? It's not real, is it? RC Cola is for real. It was actually pretty funny. I used to work at Pat O'Brien's down the quarter, and the people at Pat O'Brien's didn't like Pepsi, but they got into an argument with the Coke man. So they actually serve RC Cola in, from their fountains, at least at the time when I worked there over that one summer. And so people would ask me, excuse me, do you have Coke or Pepsi? I'll be like, neither. We have RC Cola. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. They're like, I have water. So let's see, no party affiliation, but I have to change vote in primary, then I can change it again, pretty much. I mean, my wife's birthday is today, fixing to be a cookie monster here shortly too. Cookie, what kind of cookie? Cream filled?
Oh my.
Anyway, if you're still here, Chad, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mrs. Bostic, because I don't know your first name. Happy birthday to you. Anyway. See, I go through a lot of cookies and milk. I make delicious freaking cookies. I make cookies that are gluten-free that you would never know. You would never know. And even when I make the cookies for the other folks who can have flour, but I can't do it in my house because I don't want to get cross-contaminate everything by tossing flour all over the house, those are even better. But at least the chocolate chip ones. But even the regular chocolate chip cookies that I make are still pretty darn good. Like, I have somebody who is not celiac, does not have gluten-free or gluten allergies, or can perfectly eat gluten, and he's like, let me know when you make more cookies. So let's see. See, everybody, please be careful and watch everything. I'm going to watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Good night. Awesome. Have you? I need to ask Suzanne if she's gotten into that episode where Cisco ends the show about all of the horrible things he's lied, he's cheated, he's murdered, and does he regret it? Not a bit. And then he deletes the log. It's great. Speaker Johnson blocked a House vote on the tariffs. Of course he did. Hey, Richard, thank you for joining. So I agree. I think new parents should be able to remote vote. Everyone else should be able to be watching in D.C. I'm not even talking about parents. I'm about the voting by individuals. I'm talking about the people serving in Congress. Because Speaker Johnson didn't want to let somebody who was on maternity leave, because I think she had to get a C-section early. I think. He didn't want her to be able to cast a ballot. He wanted her vote to her. She's a duly elected representative of this government and didn't want her to have a say on the particular vote. Whatever your situation is, regardless of if it's pregnancy or giving birth or having a colonoscopy or whatever, we have the technology to be able to make sure that you are who you say you are, especially when it comes to these sort of things. Why can't they vote over Zoom? There's no reason why a person can't vote from home over Zoom, can't participate in anything over a web meeting. You should be able to do meetings from your office. You shouldn't have to go in unless, you want maybe like huge official things or whatever. But even then, you should still allow people, just have them zoom in, turn their monitors the other way to face the screen so they could see the people or whatever, so they could have it automatically turn back and forth to watch the people who's speaking. If it's somebody from home, project the image up on top of a big screen and give them the floor. It should be very easy to do, but hey, I'm just a techie guy. What do I know? Let's see. It's 250 kilograms. Congrats. After 60, cutting alcohol weight doesn't shift like the younger days. Exactly. Are you really? You must be watching very late. You must have started the show and for early on or whatever. Let's see. Let's go back up. It's back where we were because I keep scrolling down. Let's see. VD Hertz. I can name numerous reasons why tariffs now will be far worse than tariffs 100 years ago, or tariffs, I guess, 90 years ago, or was that 100 years? Oh my God, was it 100 years ago? Almost when Smoot Harley was passed. Wow. VD Hertz, my driver's license does not have my weight. Well, my driver's license used to not have a weight because it just had a number that I put there that had no representation of what my actual real weight was. And it didn't either when I got my license here because I was over, probably about 100 pounds over what it was, or maybe a little less than 100 pounds. So, you're welcome, Chad. I mean, for all of our disagreements, you are a loyal listener, and you give good super chats, right? Not that I can be bought. I mean, there are people who donated to my Patreon, who shall not be named, who I blocked from here, blocked from Patreon, and refunded as much as I could, because I didn't want to have to deal with that crap. Let's see. Scroll down too far again. So I had no idea this was a real thing in the U.S. On the plus side, I prefer learning that to having to learn all your effing politics. You learn lots of great things on Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. Real things like, the fact that voter ID laws are inconsequential when it comes to actually preventing fraud, too, that RC Cola is a real thing. For all those things, all of the great things. Let's see. Michael Andrews, my wife made some good chocolate chip homemade cookies. I mean, to be honest, mine's just a slight variation on the Toll House recipe. I do use slight variations to make it an improvement. I'm maybe a little heavy-handed on the vanilla, and I use dark brown sugar instead of light brown sugar. And I use real butter always, unless I'm making cookies that are both gluten-free and dairy-free, in which case I will use the dairy-free chocolate chips and dairy-free and margarine, or some sort of, better dairy-free butter. Costs a little more to make. I would charge a little more when I made them for people, but when I made it for the people liked those too. So if I ever am no longer employed, I know I could probably make a decent amount of money at the beginning just by baking and selling gluten-free cookies out of my house. But hopefully we'll never be in that situation. And it'll be just something I do for my wife and part-time for other things. Let's see. I'm thinking of ordering an urn for my ashes from Wayfair before midnight. I didn't know you could buy urns for ashes on Wayfair. Jeez, it's kind of dark. Let's see. Let's just keep scrolling. We're almost at the end. Does anyone ever remember Space Food Sticks? Whatever happened to them? It sounds familiar, but I don't. Let's see. Developed in the 1960s, were a nutritionally balanced meal snack that was designed to be eaten by astronauts with their helmets on. Interesting. No, I guess that's something different that I didn't realize. Was not aware about. They always have sales, but the tariffs are going to slam them now. Sure. Jolie, our bad weather finally passed. Got crazy for a bit. Had my cat in her carrier in the hallway. I plan on being ignored for that for the rest of the night. She's super mad at me.
It is what it is.
Yes, strawberry or chocolate, that and Tang. Yes. I used to like Tang. I know Impeccable Living doesn't like Tang.
Oh my.
Sorry. I remember the space ice cream. I definitely remember the dehydrated ice creams or whatever. Ice creams. Good language. Good English there, Dan. Funny things, other things to talk about before we get to one of our other topics. Copyright lawsuit over rally songs. Judge rules. Trump can't dismiss Isaac Hayes' copyright lawsuit over rally songs. Case against President Trump has problems, a judge says, but it's strong enough to avoid being dismissed immediately. Federal judge says President Donald Trump must face a copyright lawsuit filed by the estate of Isaac Hayes. Speaking of South Park. Hello there, children. Hey, Chef. How's it going? Bad. Well, bad. Anyway. Over the president's alleged use of the 1960s song Hold On, I'm Coming on the campaign trail. Ironically enough, for Jeff Crouer's evening show that he does on WGSO 990 AM, 6 to 7 p.m. on weekday nights. If you haven't called in that show yet to talk about why you think Donald Trump is a Nazi for Executive Order 14188, you should still do so. And he also uses the Hold On, I'm Coming. In a ruling issued Wednesday, court records showed that Judge Thomas Thrash denied a motion by Trump's attorneys to dismiss the case of Hold On. Seeking the end of the case, attorneys for Trump had argued the state of the late soul legend had failed to show that they even owned the rights to the claim that have been infringed by the campaign. They have no copyright, much less a copyright claim. but a hearing on Wednesday per the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Judge Thrash says the Hayes estate has done just enough to avoid having the case tossed. I think that the second amend complaint, in spite of all of its problems, there are quite a few, adequately alleges ownership of the work, yada, yada, yada. So there you go. Donald Trump loses yet again in court, and I'm sure they'll make up some crap over why this is a violation or whatever. Anyway, let's just bring this up real quick, because we're going to be chatting about this later, because I finally got feedback on my story, but we'll talk about this towards the end of the show. Yeah. Chef's salty balls. Grease up that cookie sheet, because I hate when my balls stick. Anyway. Gotta love South Park Sings, the South Park songs. So we actually did that song. I think I might have done it one time at karaoke. But in order for me to get the really good voice, I need to like be a little more loud than I like to be when I'm doing the podcast. I want to blow your eardrums out. Or anyway. So we'll get back to that topic in a second or whatever. No, we're not switching that yet. We want to switch this first. Talk about burying the lead, eh? So it's weird. It's weird to watch both the Twitch and the YouTube streams and the amount of delay between the two. Like there's at least a 5 to 10 seconds delay between when the people on Twitch are seeing it and what the people on YouTube are seeing. It's very weird. Aaron must mute one of them whilst modding both, because that would be very distracting. Put them in your mouth and suck them. Still have chocolate salty balls in my head. Oh man, baby, you just burnt my balls. Anyway, so I would not go into space without a bag of pot and a bag of cocaine and a bottle of whiskey myself. Okay, you could go into space with pot. I'm not quite sure how you would manage to do I'm sorry. You could go into space with whiskey, no problem. In order to go into space with a bag of pot, it'd have to be edibles, right? Because I can't imagine you'd be able to effectively smoke that. Nor would you want to light anything in the middle of a space station. The other thing, any things that you might sniff, it still would be interesting at how you restrain it from going all over the place, but even then, that's a little more understandable and reasonable than the other thing, right? So, Jolie, hate is a strong word. Trump is probably the only person in the world I say I hate. Chad, I simply don't like you very much, but thanks. I know what Jolie does like.
I like turtles.
Yes, so that's very funny, Jolie. But yes, I do wish that my listeners, all the Liberal Danimals, and my mods would get along in all the spaces that they exist, not just here. So, turtle. I like turtles except for former Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. So, I just got into a new bag of edibles, new strain. I'm baked. Is that a pun? Is that a joke? Is that a witty comment or whatever? Anyway, let's get to this, shall we? Let's maximize that. I might have to change where my face is because I don't want my face over Joe Rogan's. Anyway, so I would never have thought that I would be agreeing with Joe Rogan, at least partially, on anything, let alone airing anything he says on this podcast. That being said, I heard some quote from Joe Rogan yesterday, and I had to go look it up because, again, it was April Fool's Day, and I didn't want to believe that this was actually something that was true. Maybe something that AI made up, made it sound like Joe Rogan was saying, or maybe some comedian made it sound like Joe Rogan was saying it. I don't know. However, it was actually legit, and there is a legitimate reason why people who are avid followers or listeners or watchers of Liberal Dan Radio Talk from the Left That's Right might think that, oh, maybe Joe Rogan does follow and watch Liberal Dan Radio. I doubt it, but, maybe. And here's why. Yes, I have to, let me move myself over here real quick so I'm not hovering over Joe as we have this conversation or as we discuss this thing. So let's go ahead and watch a wee bit of Joe Rogan. Now, before this clip starts, I mean, this isn't the whole episode. Before this starts, let me just say that before he got to this point, he definitely did say some stuff that I disagree with. Clearly. I mean, he's talking about the violent criminals coming across the border and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Parroting a lot of the Donald Trump talking points. Of course, we're not going to agree with him on that. There's no reason to even go over those things because we've talked about those points on the show over and over and over again. I look like the devil on his... Hey, head enemy, I should be the angel on his shoulder, right? Not the devil, although I'd probably have to be a little smaller if I wanted to be the devil on the shoulder. So basically, let's see, if I wanted to do, let's do this and do this here, then that's the liberal Dan on Joe Rogan's shoulder. Anyway, a little amusing, but let's watch what old Joe Rogan has to say. And of course, it's very difficult for me to see Joe Rogan without thinking of the Dave Chappelle skit where he did Fear Factor. Let me tell you something, Joe Rogan. I smoke rocks. Anyway, so here is Joe Rogan from the Joe Rogan Experience. And I'll let you be the judge as to, with some commentary as to why I think that maybe Joe Rogan watches Liberal Dan Radio Talk from the Left That's Right.
Yeah. It's such a bullshit argument. Because, a lot of them I bet don't. 94% fewer illegal border crossings detected.
Well, first of all, we've already discussed that point on the show. I have no reason to believe that number is accurate from Donald Trump. And again, why don't I believe? There's another video on this on the channel, but real quickly, the reason I don't believe that number from the Trump administration is because Donald Trump has already proven himself to not want to show you the real numbers. Like when he said he wanted to reduce the testing, he wanted to stop COVID testing when he was at the rally in Tulsa during the campaign of 2020. He said, stop the testing, because if you have more testing, you have more cases. No, if you have more testing, you reveal more cases. So he didn't want us seeing the real numbers of how many people were actually infected by COVID-19. So why would I believe that the numbers coming from the border are anywhere close to being correct either? Or maybe they just stopped trying to apprehend, and that's the way he makes it look like he's doing a good job, when in reality, he's just dropping the ball. Let's continue.
From February 25th versus February 2024.
Yeah, they can only count them, I guess, by when they actually
bust
stop them. Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly. I think I said that somewhere in the show or whatever, or maybe on the thing behind me. Yeah. It is definitely a broken clock moment. Right twice a day, except for a military time clock, then it would only be right once a day. I don't even think, he's right at all any days. I think it kind of goes back and forth and runs away from the time, but this just happened to be a time where he caught up with it.
Yeah. That's a big number. 94% is good. So there's still people coming through.
Yeah.
And there's probably still people coming through that are criminals.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
But the thing is, that was like, what?
You got to get scared that people who are not criminals are getting, lassoed up and deported and sent to, El Salvador prisons.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of shit. Because I read some story. Was it Glenn Greenwald?
It was. Yeah. The gay barber guy?
Yeah.
It's scary, man.
Is that true? Is that story accurate?
I don't think we know.
Can you explain the story for people that don't know?
Well, from what I read, I think it was in Time magazine, Jamie, if you can pull it up, and maybe we can get it accurate. But basically, with a bunch of these Agua guys, allegedly they got at least one guy who wasn't a criminal, who was just a gay barber who I think, according to the story, came here legally. He was here legally. That's what they said. Don't know if it's true.
Did he have a green card?
I don't know what the details are. Maybe Jamie can find it.
No criminal record.
From what it said in that story. Now, this is the problem, right? Because the mainstream media has been putting out so much shit that I don't know what to believe anymore, right?
I feel the same way.
Now, of course, they're going to blame it's the mainstream media's fault that we can't believe what they're saying. Maybe it's Donald Trump's fault that you can't believe anything that anybody says because they put out so much crap like condoms to Hamas in Gaza for example, that maybe we can't believe anything that's going on because they're doing horrible stuff. And there's a reason why all this stuff is getting cut all willy-nilly. We'll get to that in a second. Let's continue.
It's and so it's difficult, but it's something that we actually brought up in one of our conversations. We interviewed the guy from the Heritage Foundation. We brought this up because I think we talked about this with Doge as well. When you do things quickly and you do things aggressively, that's how you get shit done. But that's also when mistakes get made.
Right.
And I think a human being being plucked out of nowhere and ending up in a country he's never been in a maximum security prison with gang members, seems like a bad thing to happen to me.
It's horrific. It's horrific.
I don't think that should be controversial.
No, that's not controversial at all. And this is the thing, measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
This is
There you go.
this is kind of
There
crazy.
you go. Measure twice, cut once. Who has said that repeatedly over the last 2 months of this administration, or maybe even more? It couldn't have been me, huh? I've been saying measure twice, cut once constantly. Not only is measure twice, cut once good for, carpentry, budgets, circumcisions, it's also good for when you're doing other things like, taking actions. It's a good euphemism, so to speak, for taking actions too quickly. You want to make sure that you're doing the right thing before you do it, or else you screw up. Joe freaking Rogan can see this. If Joe freaking Rogan can see that this administration is violating such things like measure twice, cut once, then everybody else should be able to see it as well. Not only is he admitting that the Trump administration deporting people who shouldn't be deported because they're actually innocent people, have nothing to do with what they're trying to deport people for. Not only did he see that, but he also used my line that I've been using about the Trump administration. Now, I know it's not a unique line to me. I know other people say that. That's why I use it, because it's something that everybody uses. But, I've been saying this for 2 months. Joe Rogan might be a little bit late to the picnic here, but I've been saying this for 2 months or more. Another reason why you should be listening to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right, Mondays and Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Central, here, liberaldanradio.com or twitch.tv/liberaldanradio. But furthermore, so maybe Joe Rogan does watch Liberal Dan, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But I know somebody who probably doesn't watch Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right, who probably should need to watch Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. It's people in the Trump administration, including White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, who was talking about this issue of the deportation of folks from, our country and not doing, due process, not making sure that the people who are there, and the administration has come out with 2 lines that are absolutely contradictory with each other. So let's switch back over here and see what Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt has to say.
Changing subjects for 1 second, the administration has expressed a complete confidence in how all the deportation flights to El Salvador were conducted. But now that the administration has conceded that there was an error of 1 Salvadoran national, will there be any reviews conducted? And does the president express any thoughts on the one error that was disclosed in court last night?
Well, first of all,
one error that we found. There's probably more, and there's multiple errors, I believe. Now, at this point, I think we know that there's multiple errors. So it's not just one error, so the reporter is incorrect on that particular point. That being said, again, when they find that there's one error, who's to say that was the first time? There's probably many, just like the whole signal thing. Just because that was the one that a reporter happened to get attitude doesn't mean that was the only time they did it. And now we're seeing that there are Gmails that are happening where we're discussing our, national security issues on Gmail, on people's private email addresses and not in government email addresses. These people are all willy-nilly with our national security, but they're also, making big mistakes when it comes to this sort of thing. But let's get to the contradiction that is the White House Press Secretary and the White House itself on this issue and what they're saying that is absolutely contradictory.
The error that you are referring to was a clerical error. It was an administrative error. The administration maintains the position that this individual who was deported to El Salvador and will not be returning to our country was a member of the brutal and vicious MS-13 gang. That is fact number one. Fact number two, we also have credible intelligence proving that this individual was involved in human trafficking. And fact number three, this individual was a member, actually a leader of the brutal MS-13 gang, which this president has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Fact number four is that foreign terrorists do not have legal protections in the United States of America anymore, and it is within the president's executive authority and power to deport these heinous individuals from American communities. It is a promise he campaigned on. It is a promise he is keeping. And every single person in this room should be grateful for that, considering especially MS-13 is very prevalent and prominent here in the District of Columbia, in Maryland, and in Virginia. And the president, the attorney general, everyone who has been...
Anyway, so, yeah, that's great. So lots of BS that was said there. Clearly lots of BS that was said there. However, the main point that we want to discuss when it comes to this is the fact that it was an administrative error, but they're convinced that he was a criminal. If it was administrative error, how are they convinced he's a criminal? How is that even possible? It either is administrative error or he's a criminal that needs to be deported. Right? But anybody who should be deported should get due process rights, should be afforded due process rights. The Constitution specifically does not restrict due process rights to citizens. It's to all people. All people get due process under the law. Everyone. States can't deny it. The federal government can't deny it. Every single individual is afforded due process under the law by the Constitution of the United States of America, and nobody is allowed or should be allowed to circumvent the Constitution of the United States of America. That's where all laws are based on. And conservatives used to, cry about that day and night, at least until somebody they like does something that they like that is unconstitutional. Then they bend over backwards or forwards or however they want to be bent over to make excuses for those politicians. But you cannot say both things and have it be correct. It's either an administrative error or it was a valid action. It can't be a valid action if it's administrative error. Do you agree or disagree with me on that point? Do you think that Joe Rogan should give me props for coming up with the whole measure twice, cut once when it comes to this administration, and I've been talking about this for 2 months, and that he's a little late to the bandwagon in this? I mean, I'm not surprised because he was kissing Musk and Trump's ass this entire time. And maybe now he's learning a little bit, maybe he's finding out a little bit that this administration is acting irresponsibly. This administration is acting horribly, deplorably when it comes to their actions as it pertains to people who they want to deport, because to me it's clear that they don't give a crap who they deport as long as that person is not an American. I mean, agree with me or not? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel, and unless you're a Nazi or supporter of what Karoline Leavitt says or the Trump administration does, have a good day. Chad Bostic, good book reading time for the young and everyone. Have a good night and a good rest of your week. Thank you, Chad, for joining. Appreciate you. Levitt's last job, Stefanik's communication director, yes. I don't know. I think Karoline Leavitt's last job might have been whatever she did for her 50-year-old geriatric husband.
Oh, my.
Anyway, just a dirty joke. Sorry. Maybe he does a job for her, too, because, maybe he reciprocates. I don't know. Maybe he's a fantastic lover at the age of 50, and that's why, and maybe he has lots of redeeming qualities that makes her just want to fall in love with him regardless of his age. I can't say that with a straight face. I'm sorry. Criminal or not, they didn't get to process. Nobody did. Exactly. Tim, why is there no coverage of what's happening in Hungary? Well, because that's one of the reasons why our media can't be trusted, because they don't give us all the information that we need to know, because, they don't care. we have media who's more than willing to bend over backwards or forwards for Herr Trump when it comes to, what's going on. But, we talked about, there's the 22 days since Maryland resident Kilmar Abrego Garcia was mistakenly deported to a notoriously violent prison in El Salvador. His young son has sought comfort in the scent of his missing father's clothes. That's just horrible. He shows me how much he missed Kilmar. Abrego Garcia's wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sura, said in the documents in court, he's been finding Kilmar's work shirts and smelling them to smell his familiar scent. 29 years old he worked in sheet metal apprentice, was pursuing a journeyman license, was pulled over at an IKEA and was arrested on March 12th with his 5-year-old son in the car. An immigration judge in 2019 had granted him protection for being deported back to El Salvador, where Abrego Garcia was likely to face persecution by local gangs. He had a legal work permit issued by the Department of Homeland Security, yet he was sent back to his native El Salvador, which President Trump's administration acknowledged was an administrative error. Of course, is it an error or not? Because if they're making excuses for it, it's not. What they should be doing is trying to get them back, but they're not going to do that, according to Karoline Leavitt. Why? Because while they can admit the administrative error, they're never going to admit the mistake of actually taking an action that harms people, that puts somebody innocent at risk. And they haven't proven with any means that this person is the criminal that they're saying that he is. And they should be required to do so with checks and balances so that their actions can adequately be checked and balanced. But oh no, if we want checks and balances, that's going against the will of the people. That means the will of the people is evil and stupid. Abrego Garcia's family and attorneys have denied any gang ties and argued that the U.S. has little evidence to support its claim. In court documents filed Wednesday, his lawyers argued that the U.S. government's mistake must be corrected and overturned. Otherwise, immigration court orders are meaningless because the government can deport whomever they want, whenever they want, wherever they want. Not citing Shakira at this point. That's not Shakira law. Sandoval Mahusberg noted the U.S. has been paying El Salvador government to incarcerate Abrego Garcia and other deportees. He argued that the efforts to return him would likely be successful. First, just ask them nicely, please give him back to us. Their argument that there's nothing they could possibly do to get this guy back is significantly weakened by the fact that on Wednesday, Kristi Noem inside that prison, Sandoval Moseberg told the Associated Press in an interview they didn't do so much and ask why and say, by the way, you got this one guy, we messed up, can we have him back please? He said, adding that U.S. previously moved mountains to return people mistakenly deported. But of course that wasn't Donald Trump moving any mountains. I don't move any mountains, the mountains move for me. That's because Abrego Garcia is not a U.S. citizen and outside the country. The professor of the U.S. Supreme Court has long held that Congress, working with the executive branch, gets to decide who's allowed to enter and under what terms. I don't know of a single instance where a federal court has ordered a presidential administration to allow a particular person who is not a U.S. citizen in the United States. That being said, the fact that he was legally here and deported erroneously should be a justification to require this administration to take an action and undo the action, and also should be paying compensation to the family for the harm done to this father and husband. And if you want to prove it, frickin' prove it in court. Otherwise, go F yourself. Let's see. Jeff or Jackie opened up my desktop, was looking at pics, I saw some videos of my kids. All I heard was mommy, 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 then making faces. Oh, that's so cute. Just started crying. There was one time where a computer of mine crashed. This was like way early on, I think, when I had my first Android phone. One of my computers crashed. And on that computer, and now I'm a software guy, I was able to get some of the things back from the computer. Like I found a picture, I used some software to actually get a corrupted hard drive and found a couple of pictures, but I couldn't find the video. I was so upset that I couldn't find this video. It was like my son, oldest son, Thomas, loved Thomas the Tank Engine, loved Thomas and Friends, loved all that stuff. Probably still, I think he still does. Like, I mean, he doesn't really ask for many. I think he did ask for on Christmas, despite the fact that he was 16. He did ask for a Thomas and Friends set. So we just don't have any room for any of that. But that being said, it was his mind was absolutely blown. Like, I was worried because we actually got to ride on Thomas the Tank Engine or whatever in a train. You know, he took us around the whole entire area that was in Alabama or whatever. And I was thinking that he would be so upset that we're pulling off this train that he would have a tantrum. Nope. He was so mind blown that he was just so happy that he got to ride on a train with Thomas the Tank Engine that he didn't need anymore. He was just so happy. But like he sees Thomas as he's coming up the tracks and he's like, "It's Thomas!" And it's very cute. And he's like, he's just starting to get into his speech because he was speech delayed. But he was able to say some of the things, and it's just so cute. And the phone died. The computer died. I thought I lost everything. And then I was bored at work one day at a previous job, and there was really nothing to do. And I was scrolling around, looking around Google, and I found my Google Photos, and I started going through my Google Photos just to see what was in there because, again, I was new to Android, so I was new to having the Google Photos and automatically update. And all of a sudden, I get to that date, and I see the video, and I start playing the video, and I started crying. Because I found the video that I wanted to watch, that I wanted to be able to watch for the rest of my life, because it was such a sweet video, and I was just happy tears that I found the video. So, contradicting themselves, yeah. Let's see. Claiming they have no jurisdiction, exactly, that's a whole bunch of BS. See, there's a reason why they aren't going to admit anything. Innocence only matters to people they consider human, exactly. Elon's father divorced his wife, married her stepdaughter, and had more kids. Man, all the shitty stuff about Elon, and I didn't know that. That's like stuff out of a porn. Christy Nome goes to Joan Rivers' plastic surgeon. She may very well be. Does Joan Rivers' plastic surgeon, did she also, murder dogs? See, they can extradite cartel criminals from Mexico, but they have no authority to bring back innocents from a country the U.S. taxpayers are paying to house them. Exactly. That's another BS argument from them. If we can get people extradited, if we can get guilty people extradited so they can serve and so they can actually be put, in jail, brought up on charges, and put on trial for crimes against this country, we can bring back people who we illegally deported. So VD Hertz, members of my family have green cards. They are treating Trump like COVID, staying home, cooking, etc. And that's a shame that that's what people have to do. That they're afraid to now go out and do anything because of the fear of the Gestapo tactics of this administration. And I'm tired of pussyfooting around it. I'm tired of not saying what needs to be said. These people are using Gestapo tactics. VD Hertz, Dow index will open down 900 tomorrow, NASDAQ down 670. I guess that's the futures or whatever, but no surprise, again, because tariffs are dumb. And they're going to hurt the American people, and they're going to sink us further and further into the depression. Oh, wait, I'm not Ben Stein on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So, let's see, I've almost gotten almost everything I wanted to talk about, at least bigly today. I want to talk about it bigly. We did have Senator Booker, who started earlier in the day on Monday, and we watched a little bit of it before we went off to talk about other things. He did his historic filibuster. Back then I said he should have started the filibuster during the whole credit card fee thing or the overdraft fee thing. I mean, that doesn't take away from the accomplishment that he did with standing up there for over 25 hours, beating Strom Thurmond's overall record. And when they announced that he did that, and he kind of teared up, and I kind of teared up, and he talked a little bit about John Lewis, and how what I think he asked him about the Strom Thurmond thing. He basically said about, and I think he said that John Lewis is a good Christian man, and he forgave Strom Thurmond for his terrible things. Because remember, Strom Thurmond said segregation now, segregation always. He ran for president as a segregationist. And the Republican Party embraced him. Yes, he used to be a Democrat, back when the Democrats were the racist party back in the 1800s, or whenever it is Strom Thurmond was served early on in his career, early 1900s, I know. But first half, I guess, of the 20th century. But John Lewis may be able to forgive him for his white supremacist shitty ways, but I sure as hell have no requirement to do so. I'm not required to forgive anybody for their transgressions. F them. F that. F him. F that racist. And where did Strom Thurmond go when he didn't have a home in the Democratic Party anymore because the Democratic Party was supporting things like civil rights and equality and, not segregation? He left the Democratic Party. He joined the Dixiecrats first. Then after becoming a Dixiecrat, he became a Republican. And then he became Senate Majority Leader, much like Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Probably just as racist. But Mitch McConnell, I guess, hasn't done that many things outwardly, at least recently, that said that. But still, he supports policies and presidents and politicians that are racist. So vote for a racist. I'm going to call you a racist. Simple as that. What's the moral difference between somebody who is a racist and a bashed, stated, clear racist, and somebody who doesn't have a problem with the racism and still votes for that person anyway? I see no more moral difference between the two. And neither do any of you, I know, because y'all are good people. See, I did have a little thing to talk about Keith Self. We handled that conversation earlier on the show about the fact that, while he went from misgendering, he misgendered the Delawarean congressperson, misgendered her, used her dead name, and then, expects me to give him the benefit of the doubt. Fuck him too. We talked about the Wisconsin Supreme Court vote and the voter ID law. There's this too. I did want to do this. There's this other thing before we get into before maybe the writing contest thing, my personal thing. We'll talk about this. We'll talk again one more time about the game, and we'll go from there. But let's bring this up, if I can even read it, because it's NOLA.com, and NOLA.com likes to block things behind a paywall now. Oh, there we go. This story is for subscribers just today. So let's see if we can find another thing. Trump DEI Tulane. Wonder if the Tulane Hullabaloo has it. The Hullabaloo had an April Fool's Day, or is it not? Fullabaloo, Tulane to add Office of Caucasian Appreciation following Trump administration's anti-DEI policies. That Hullabaloo is a mocking, funny, newspaper for Tulane University. That's typically very well done. This article is entirely satire. All information and interviews below are fictional and for entertainment purposes only. They make it a point. I'll bring that up here just to show you. I'm sorry, I'm over the wrong part again. Let's see. There you go. This article is entirely satire. All information, interviews below are fictional for entertainment purposes only. Tulane University sent an email this week announcing that it's implementing a new office in the wake of recent Trump administration threats to federal funding, the Office of Caucasian Appreciation. We thought this was a long time coming, said Tulane President Michael Fitz. It's time the majority, if not the entirety of this university is represented fairly. It is a really scary time to be a white person right now, and they need to be appreciated. The office will be alongside the newly announced Office of Academic Excellence and Opportunity, which replaced the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion earlier this month. According to Tulane spokesman Robert E. Lee, this has nothing to do with the Trump administration. We're definitely not scared of losing hundreds of millions of dollars, Lee said. Nothing really major is changing on campus. We're just going to be separate, but equal. Recently, federal immigration authorities have been detaining students on college campuses and placing them in deportation proceedings. Tulane students are a similar fear of immigration and custom enforcement officers. My parents are immigrants from England, so we're all going through a really difficult time, says senior Chad McConnell. I've stopped making my beans on toast breakfast in the Commons to avoid being spotted by government officials. Tulane has undergone immense preparation to combat the expected backlash, but was surprised to see zero student protests regarding the Office of Caucasian Appreciation now. OCAN, is that what it's called? OCAN? The university must decide what to do with the thousands of barricades positioned around the entire campus. We heard so much cheering from students all across campus that when we sent out a campus-wide email that was extremely vague and written by ChatGPT, Lee said, "Oh, did I mention nothing is really changing? This is just a new name for an office. Nothing is changing. It's just a name. Nothing is changing." The response was so positive that even Greek organizations celebrated. Mu Alpha Gamma Alpha, or MAGA, if you will, through an impromptu darty after the email was called out. Rock out with your cock out. Cock as in Caucasian.
Oh my.
I think this is a great new addition to Tulane. I mean, I never saw white people on the website for Office of EDI. Oh, I mean, Office of, I don't actually know what the new name is, Joe Colonel said. We just wanted a little kickback with the boys. We had some White Claws and played Morgan Wallen. It was a grand old party. White culture is real, McConnell said, clapping when the plane lands, mayonnaise-based salads, cream cheese. These things are important to my family and should be important to anyone. Hey, you wait just a second here, mister. That is insulting to my Jewish heritage because we as Jewish people love cream cheese on bagels and various other things. So stop mocking cream cheese as being a Caucasian thing. It's a Jewish thing. And if you listen to Nazis, you will know that Jews are not white people, right? I really should have recorded that whole thing because that would have been funny. But oh well. Now only you get to see it because they didn't record it and I don't feel like editing it now.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. So I didn't even know that the Tulane Hullabaloo had written this story. I just saw the NOLA.com article and then just forgot to check to see if there was a paywall or not. WWL TV, there we go. Here's the real story. Oh, wait, no. Why is this being stupid? There we go. The real story. This is time for Fat Man Rant. According to WWL, Tulane University is undergoing changes regarding diversity and inclusion initiatives. Recently, the university closed 2 offices focused on supporting LGBTQ plus students and students of color. In April, the university did away with its Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and ushered in the Office of Academic Excellence and Opportunity. So clearly that was a thing, and that wasn't a false statement by the Hullabaloo. Recently, the Office of Multicultural Affairs and Office of Gender and Sexual Diversity were restructured. The values and student support services offered by the Office of Multicultural Affairs and Office of Gender and Sexual Diversity will continue, said Mike Strecker, a spokesperson for Tulane. In some instances, programming may change to align with institutional framework and evolving needs of the community. What that means is to kowtow and bend over for Donald frickin' Trump. It is an incredibly difficult time to be a leader of an organization right now, said Britt Hogue of the Collective Good. Hogue works with an organization facing threats of losing federal funding and says Tulane appears to be walking a fine line. Certainly something has shifted. Yes, something shifted. We elected a racist and bigot who doesn't understand what DEI frickin' means, and although he will spell out that he doesn't like diversity, equity, and inclusion, he doesn't actually understand what the whole thing means. You know what was DEI? In their definition of the word DEI, because they think DEI is only hiring people based on their race and not based off their merit. Segregation was DEI. Only hiring white people when there were more qualified black people. Only hiring men when there were more qualified or just as qualified women. That's their incorrect version of DEI on full display, and that's what they want us to return to. Tulane says this reorganization is part of our ongoing effort to ensure that every unit of the university remains equally accessible and supportive, and that we continue to follow our core values, which include building a community which everyone, regardless of their backgrounds, has an equal opportunity to achieve their dreams, blah, blah, blah. It sends a message that we are sort of backing down, said Hogue. The universities need to talk to their communities about what's really going on. How do we walk through this in a way that doesn't make our community feel like we're throwing away these values? Let me say something else before I end this rant, this fat man rant. Tulane, when I went there for 3 years, was like 33% Jewish. It's still known to have a wide, broad Jewish population that attends Tulane University. I don't know what specifically about Tulane University made it be the southern mecca for Jewish people wanting to go to school and have some drinks or whatever, but it is. But you're sitting here, Tulane University, you are catering to a Nazi. Because that's what Donald Trump fucking is. He's a goddamn Nazi. Why do I know he's a Nazi? He ran for office in 2016, scapegoating an entire religion. He called the press, fake news, i.e. what Hitler would call the Lügen press, or the lying press, to cast doubt into any reports that would be made against him by said media. He, before this election was over, scapegoated all of Judaism by saying that if he lost, it would be our fault. And of course, if you've listened to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from left, that's right, at all for the last month, you would know that Donald Trump had Executive Order 14188 that supposedly was meant to combat anti-Semitism, but guess what? 14188 is basically another way to put 14/88, which is Nazism. That is a Nazi numerology type thing. It is used by white supremacists. We've talked about the show on already, but if you don't realize that, if you still haven't figured it out, if you're still doubting that 14188 was a Nazi thing and done to as a dog whistle to the Nazis and Nazi apologists and other white supremacists who would love to see those sort of things coming from administration, you're an idiot and you're a fool if you don't see that, and if you're going to pander and cater and kowtow to this Nazi president. And he has Musk, who might be resigning soon, supposedly, but why do I believe anything they say? I don't. Who gave frickin' Hitler salutes at conventions. If you goose step like a Nazi and you say Heil like a Nazi, you're a frickin' Nazi. What do you think? Do you still make excuses for Donald Trump and Executive Order 14188? Do you think Tulane University is doing the right thing by catering, kowtowing, pandering to Donald Trump and his racist, bigoted initiatives? Or do you agree with me? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel, and of course, unless you're a Nazi, have a good day. I was holding that cough in for a wee good bit. Anyway. Let's... Mad Mac, it's called schmear, right, Dan? Yes, you put a nice schmear on it. You got a nice bagel, you put some schmear, some lox on it. What's not to like? So, anyway. He knows what it means. He just wants to say it with the hard R. Exactly. Good point. I'm Native American. I use cream cheese too, usually in baking. Yeah. Yeah, Robin M. Cream cheese is hella good, or you meant did you mean hella good, or did you meant hella good as the Jewish bread, so to speak? Trump put a 54% on anything from China. That ought to make prices of goods cheaper. Let's see. Alan also said, remind me later, I'll send you some links for bypassing paywalls. Oh, appreciate that, Chris. Maybe I need to read some more, but I just looked up the party switch and it brings up to a party realignment, which doesn't seem to be the exact same thing. It pretty much, we could talk about the party switch if you want for a little bit, but jburrow049 on Twitch says, I might be gay. Good for you, Mazel Tov. Thank you for coming out of the closet. Or if you're questioning coming out of the closet, you were in a safe space here on Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from left, that's right. I hope you're not trolling. I hope you're being serious, and I hope you feel comfortable enough to come to the show. Oh, yeah, there you go. We can just do this then. Hold on. I don't even actually have the right thing. There we go. Ban. Ban hammer. So, let's see. KK Karoline, exactly. Cognitive dissonance, holding two opposing ideas in your mind at the same time, run strong on MAGA. Took what Trump values the most ratings and said thrown everything town hall has been saying. Dixiecrats, Republicans, DEI, uniformity, favoritism, prejudice, exclusion, and omission. Exactly. So, yeah, F that dude for wanting to, whatever. Psych! Haha. Fooled you! Nope. I knew you were probably being stupid. We'll talk about it some other time. That's fine. We can. But short story of it is the Democrats in the late 1800s were the people who shouted segregation, states' rights, the myth of states' rights, who advocated for slavery, who didn't like the northern aggression that would come down and try and stop them from owning slaves. Those people were conservatives. They would be Republicans today. That's all you need to know. And usually, when people talk about this, and I know you said we'll talk about it another day, but usually when people talk about this, they will talk about all of the racist things that Democrats did up until 1964, and then it stops. Why does it stop? Because that's when it really started switching. That's when the Democratic Party really started to embrace, equality, inclusion, DEI, even though it wasn't a thing at the time. Opposing segregation. That's why Strom Thurmond left. That's why Ronald Reagan says the Republican... Well, the Republican Party didn't, or I didn't leave the Republican Party, or I didn't leave the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party left me, Nancy. So, that's why they use the Southern strategy, to attract all of those disenfranchised, for lack of a better term, those angry white Democrats who were mad because they were segregationists, who didn't like the fact that the Northern Democrats abandoned them. So that's why. There are definitely conservative websites out there who will try and mislead you and tell you that the party switch was not a thing, but don't listen to them. Listen to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left. That's right. Live Mondays and Wednesdays here on liberaldanradio.com and twitch.tv/liberaldanradio. Anyway, let's see. Of course, we were talking about challah earlier. How do you know that Gwen Stefani might be part Jewish? Because if you give her some bread and you ask her for it back, she'll say, "I ain't no challah back, girl." Sorry. Bad. Hey, 5 Eggs, good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. Make sure to smash that like button on your way in or out or whatever. Oh, see, you're doing the right thing. You are doing what I like to do. Whenever I see any of the other liberal, progressive, left-type people out there doing a podcast, if I don't have the time to watch, I still hop in the chat, say something in chat, smash that like button, and then head off on my merry way. Because that's what we need to do to help the algorithms. Because Al Gore needs more rhythm. So, anyway. What to talk about? Last thing I wanted to talk about. I don't think we're going to get to the phones today because I have more stuff to do tonight. I probably want to try and get some sleep. All that other good stuff. You'd have gotten along great with my pop. I would have. I can imagine if anything like him, and I like you, so there you go. So as you know, I entered a writing. You may have known. For a while, during the pandemic, or maybe a little before the pandemic, I had entered some writing contests, and they were done by this organization with jokes that bad. Yep. Oh, there you go. Hey, don't call my joke bad. That was a good joke. Speaking of bad jokes, though, so I wrote this story. Should I read you the story? Do you want to hear this story? I don't know. Maybe I'll read you a story, maybe not. If you don't want to hear the story, that's fine. Maybe I'll just post a link to the story. I don't know. But I had to write a story for this particular thing. Now, the reason I stopped doing these contests for a little bit is because the judges were terrible. The judges were absolutely horrible. Like, they clearly didn't read my story and would say things in their critiques of my story that was like, where the hell did you get that from? See, read it, or I'm going to come by your place, steal it, and read it all myself. Basically, the story is called Aaron Shot at Peace. Aaron seeks out a life of peace and solitude, avoiding both his infamous past and the expectations others have for his future. Unfortunately for him, a new, overly enthusiastic neighbor brings chaos to his desired order. Now, this is about, well, we'll get to it in a second, but my prompts were a new neighbor, escapism, and it had to be a comedy. So I made this a comedy, but I also kind of made it historical fiction. I start off with a dream sequence or whatever. I say, the brisk New Jersey air flowed around Aaron as he walked his final paces. The new day's sun peeked over the eastern horizon, shining on each dew droplet that clung to the green grass below. Birds chirped in the lush trees that lined the dueling grounds. He spun, aiming his pistol at his target. The round penetrated Alexander's abdomen, who fell. Aaron opened his eyes and smiled. Hints of sunlight pierced his bedroom window. Birds whistled their good morning calls to each other. He opened his front door. The rusty hinges squealed in complaint. Buy lubricant next time in town. He inhaled through his nose, breathing in the cool country air into his lungs. It was unblemished by the city smells he'd grown accustomed to. He exhaled a sigh of relief. Not a soul for miles. Now to write the general, informing him that I won't be participating in his fanciful desires out west. He returned inside and took a seat at his well-worn desk, one of the few comforts that remained from his previous life. The drawer screeched open, and he's retrieved a blank parchment. He dipped a feather quill into the full ink pot and started writing. Dear General Wilkinson, I hope this correspondent finds you well. In the event, ... His arm knocked the ink pot over, spilling half the contents on the fresh parchment. Of all the... He sighed. Never mind. Who would hear it anyway? He placed the wasted parchment on the mantel and spent the remainder of the day and night enjoying the impossible quiet his newfound solitude allowed. The day closed as the sun set over the western hills. He laid down on his straw-filled mattress. I wonder what I will dream of tonight. But he knew it would be the same glorious dream he'd had every night since that fateful morning. Another dream sequence. Aaron took, and I have these in italics, so you could see that there. I would have to say another dream sequence. Aaron took several long strides across the dueling grounds. The air was crisp, and anticipation filled his gullet. As each foot touched ground, an odd banging filled the sky. The birds hushed. He gazed at the tree line, searching for the source of the racket. As he tried to turn, he tripped on a divot in the sod, and his face slid across the turf. The dew-laden grass stained his clothes and filled his mouth with unwelcome earthy notes. Expletives tried to escape, however, muffled sounds were all that came out. Aaron startled out of his slumber and grasped at the non-existent grasp in his mouth. That bloody divot wasn't supposed to be there? The loud rapping from his dream followed him into consciousness and echoed throughout the brown wooden walls of his cabin. He shook his head as he rose from his bed. A single straw that filled his mattress stuck into his side like a dull bee sting. Who in tarnation could this be at this ungodly hour? He opened the door, and the rusty hinges squeaked almost as badly as his knees. An unreasonably cheerful man stood on the front stoop. "Good morrow, sir. Name's Walter. Pleased to make your acquaintance." He extended his hand, and Aaron clasped it begrudgingly in response. "My name's Aaron." A breeze filled the early morning air. Walter shivered. "Brr," he said. "What?" Aaron stared at the exuberant fellow, wondering if he knew. "Brr, it's a chilly morning. Perfect weather for chopping wood. What for?" "I have acquired the parcel betwixt your land and a field of tobacco. Looks like I am your new neighbor. I need to build some sort of shack to avoid the rain." "According to the almanac, it's not supposed to rain for weeks. However, I do wish you luck, sir. Now, if you don't mind, I have some affairs to attend to." "Affairs? Don't worry. I won't tell the missus." "What?" "Never mind. Too early, I suppose. I'll return you to your morning routine." Aaron watched as his new neighbor returned to his horse and rode east towards his new homestead. Even the horse galloped in an obnoxiously cheerful way. He slammed the door shut. Wonderful. So much for solitude. Aaron sat at his desk. He opened the drawer and pulled out the final piece of parchment. He dabbed the quill into the half-filled pot of ink. As he pressed into the parchment, the feather-laden implement snapped in two. Just great. Aaron spun around and prepared to take deadly aim at his target. Another dream sequence. Instead, a familiar face stood directly in front of him. "Good morrow, Aaron." "Walter, what are you doing here? This is New Jersey." The birds were silent. Instead, a different sound filled his dream, as if wood was being struck by a sturdy metal blade. His eyes opened as he laid in his uncomfortable bed. The banging persisted as he rubbed the sleep from his eyes. He stared at the ceiling for what felt like an eternity. "Walter, it's not even daybreak." He pulled up his woolen breeches, draped a long brown cloak around his shoulders. He stared back at his pistol on the mantel over the hearth. "I don't think I'll be needing that. Today, at least." He normally enjoyed a brisk morning stroll. Of course, as the incessant noise grew louder, any potential enjoyment lessened. Walter put down his axe and wave. "Good morrow, neighbor." How can anyone be so cheerful this early? "Good morrow, Walter. Why on earth are you working before dawn?" "I do apologize. The early bird catches the worm, so they say." He goes, "Yes, but the second bear gets the mutton." "Clever." A breeze tussled in the leaves in the trees around him. "Brr." He must know, mustn't he? Or he is just frail, susceptible to the slightest breeze. He stared inquisitively at his new neighbor and then glanced at the mare feeding from her trough. Walter smiled. "She's a beautiful beastie, don't you think?" "She got a name?" "Yes, Government. What an odd name for a horse." That's a story as long as her face." "Great. I came out to avoid government, and it galloped to me instead," he thinks. Walter, I'll make you a deal. When I rise in the morning, I shall set a small fire in the hearth. Then you'll know I've awoken, and you can start your work then. I do apologize for imposing. I like you, neighbor. You get right to the hearth of the matter. We have an accord. Aaron turned away, his eyes rolled upward into his brow. I hate puns. Next dream sequence. Aaron trudged through the mud-stained grass of the dueling grounds. Rain poured down. Rain, this can't be right. Pistol in hand, he spun around. An equine muzzle filled his view. Government. He sat up in bed. That damned horse. The dawn cast odd shadows through his cabin. A deal is a deal. Aaron shuffled along the floor to the hearth. He arranged the tinder and kindling under some smaller-sized branches. Striking steel to flint, sparks flew, and the pile was quickly set ablaze. Huzzah! Walter's voice shouted into distance, followed by the sounds of sharpened steel striking wood. Aaron sat at his desk, searched his drawers for a new quill. Unfortunately, he'd snapped the last one yesterday. I suppose a trip to town's in order. He shuffled his feet slowly as he walked to his makeshift stable. His steed whinnied as he entered. There, boy. Let's get ready for a ride to town. The brown leather saddle was worn but sturdy. He raised it to Weehawken's back. Just to be clear, Weehawken was the name of the town in New Jersey that the dueling grounds was in. We'll get back to that in a second. He raised it to Weehawken's back when a loud crack followed by the sound of a falling tree startled the steed. He galloped at full speed into the distance. Aaron stood, jaw agape, watching his horse grow smaller. When he disappeared, the weight of the now useless saddle became apparent. He returned it to its hook and reluctantly plodded to Walter's house. Good morrow, neighbor. Anything I could do for you? My horse ran off. I need to get supplies from town. Might I borrow yours? Well, I don't know. Can you be trusted with the reins of government? Aaron mumbled under his breath. Don't ask what happened to the last chap who wondered that. What? Never mind. I'll take good care of her. Walter watched as Aaron rode off into town. He'll be ready soon. Aaron exited the storefront. Thunder rumbled as a breeze picked up. Government made a strange whinny. He tucked his purchases in the leather satchel attached to her side and climbed into the saddle. She trotted slowly towards the outskirts of town as a drizzle started to fall. He tapped the side of the bag. I hope this is waterproof. The town grew smaller behind him as the rain fell harder. Water soaked through every square inch of fabric he wore. About a quarter mile away from home, Government stepped on a branch. The snap startled both horse and rider. She snorted as her front legs rose. Aaron fell backwards into the mud. The satchel came loose and fell, its contents strewn everywhere. His hands flailed around, grasping at the parchment, snapped quills, and formally filled vial of lubricant. Mud covered everything. He reached his arm towards the heaven. Damn you, Alexander, I know this is your doing. He shook his head and shifted his gaze downwards. If there was any justice, you'd be down there. He tried to stand, however, the slick mud proved formidable, and he fell again. Government ambled towards her master's house, leaving Aaron fumbling in the brown mess. Hey, get back here! Government made another strange whinny. Aaron tried to walk faster to catch the mare. However, each time he reached for Government's reins, she avoided his grasp. Ironic. He gave up trying and trudged behind the mare for the final stretch home. Walter sat on a log in the rain, whittling a stick down to nothingness. He looked up and spotted the pair. Good even. What on God's green earth happened to you? Life is as inevitable as death and taxes. Also, your horse has been making odd whinnying sounds. Government made the sound again, as if on cue. That's another one. Oh, that's not a whinny. That's a neigh, Burr. You and your god-awful puns. Wait, you said my last name again. How do you know? You're Aaron Ney? No, you insolent fool. I'm Aaron Burr. Doesn't sound familiar at all. You're impossible. Burr stormed off in a huff towards his cabin. The hinge creak had been worsened by the rain. He glanced back towards Walter, who was waving like an idiot. He shook his head as he entered the foyer, glanced at the pistol on his hearth. Why act today when I could put it off till tomorrow? His soggy clothes dropped to the wooden floor as he sunk into the mattress. Several more strands of straw poked into his body, each as aggravating as the joke from Walter. After several twists and contortions to get comfortable, his body acquiesced, and he fell into a deep slumber. Another dream sequence. Aaron stood in the middle of a field, hand lightly grasping the hilt of his pistol. Government stood silent. No whinny, no neigh. No neighbor either. Alexander walked towards the mare, easily grabbed her reins, and walked away. He gave a wry smile to Burr as he left. Damn it! Aaron jolted out of bed. He put on fresh clothing and walked towards the hearth. A fire to start his day. He stomped towards the mantel and aggressively struck the flint with his small steel blade. Sparks flew and the fire filled the hearth with delight. He glanced at the pistol resting atop the mantel, the same firearm from his nightly dreams, a memento of a victory, albeit a Pyrrhic one in hindsight. He wants a fire, he can have it twice this morning. Peace is a fanciful desire, however, if life won't grant me it, I'll make it myself. His hands shook as he dumped gunpowder into the muzzle of the pistol. Half of the powder ended up on the floor. He slammed the front door open, and it squeaked even louder, reminding him of yesterday's failure. Aaron gritted his teeth in frustration, put the readied pistol in his coat pocket. He stormed out the front door, not noticing the breeze that blew back through the frame. The ink-stained parchment atop the mantel flew through the air into the hearth. It broke up as it was set ablaze. The wind continued to blow through the foyer, and the burning paper floated like feathers of the great phoenix towards the powder-laden floor. Burr hurried towards Walter's property. His hand remained on the pistol in his pocket. Halfway there, he saw Walter strutting towards him. Aaron's eyes glared at his ridiculous smile. I swear on everything that's holy, if he says good morrow one more time... Aaron had his blinders on and hadn't noticed what Walter was pulling behind him until they came face to face. His jaw dropped, and his hand left his pocket as he put it on his old friend's muzzle. You found Weehawken? I sure did. They say you can bring a horse to Walter, but I guess in this case, Walter brought a horse to you. Burr's face became flush, as if this pun was the last straw. Walter's face stared over Burr's shoulder. Good Lord. Aaron turned back and saw his cabin engulfed in an inferno. Emotions flooded his mind, unable to process the sight before him. As his mouth opened, all that was left was laughter. All my jokes, and this is what you laugh at? Burr wiped the laughter-induced tear from his eyes. Destiny is a cruel, inescapable mistress. I've put off my business in the Louisiana territories for too many tomorrows. Nothing holds me here now. I bid you adieu. That's not dew on the ground. That's rain from yesterday. Burr's hand returned to his coat pocket. For a second, he squeezed the pistol. Instead, he climbed in the saddle and rode along the still damp dirt road. He gave a final look back. Walter waved like a maniac in the distance. Aaron shook his head, leaned towards the horse, and whispered, Go west, young steed. Walter rode his mare to the outskirts of town. He tied his horse to the post and entered his cottage. Everything went well, dear? His wife was already ladling mutton potage into his bowl before he sat down. Perfectly so. Burr is finally on his way. How many awful jokes did it take? Not as many as Benedict needed, that's for certain. While you are a cunning linguist, General Wilkinson will be pleased. Do you think Burr has a shot? He did have one in New Jersey. Now, probably not. Hey, Robin, thank you for the $3 super sticker. Anyway, so what do you think of the story? I have a feather pin and quill and inkwell, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. So basically we got there. So there's me reading my story or whatever. It will be available online at some point. Yeah, cunning linguist, ha. I mean, that's part of the many jokes that was in there. Now, here's the thing. I know I'm not the best writer in the world, but I thought that was pretty good. I thought it had a lot of good humor, a lot of good jokes. Did what the prompt wanted to do. Had some good descriptions of everything that was going around with him and around Aaron. If it's not obvious to everybody, I mean, maybe it might not be obvious to Steve from across the pond. Maybe not.
If it's no Scottish, it's crap.
I mean, maybe you've seen Hamilton, the play, on Disney Plus or wherever. Not a plug for Disney Plus, but I'm just saying that's where I first watched Hamilton, so that was good, and I enjoy Hamilton. Clearly I enjoy Hamilton. I made 2 parodies for the channel based on it, plus other parodies for my other YouTube channel. But there were some references in there that might not be known unless you knew things specifically about Aaron Burr. Hell, there were things that I didn't know about Aaron Burr until I started researching some stuff for the story, because I didn't know that Aaron Burr actually plotted a coup in the Louisiana territories and he was going to commit a coup against this country. I didn't realize that. That wasn't covered in Hamilton. That wasn't really covered in any history classes. Hell, I don't think I knew about Aaron Burr. At least my generation probably didn't know about Aaron Burr that much until we saw the Got Milk commercial where the guy was working at the Aaron Burr Museum and he got the phone call to answer the question, and he couldn't answer the question because his mouth was full of peanut butter, unlike the grass that was filling Aaron Burr's mouth. And he couldn't say the words Aaron Burr clearly, so he lost the contest, even though he would have clearly won the contest because he was an expert on Aaron Burr. But, I don't know. While there are things he says, "Go West, young steed." Aaron Burr once said, "Go West, young man." Aaron Burr literally said, "Why do something today that I could put off till tomorrow?" That is an Aaron Burr saying, so I kind of implemented that into the whole thing by looking up Aaron Burr sayings or whatever. But in reality, like, I don't think you needed to know all of that to be able to enjoy the story, to get the humor. The point of the story was to laugh. The point of the story was not to have a piece of drama or whatever. So here is, let's actually go back here. Because I actually have my feedback better placed in my, in the email that I sent to my kind of group. And I was like, hey, let's scroll all the way down and find this. All right. So in here, the judges are numbered by their numbers. They're numbered. They don't give their names, they just give their numbers. And one of the problems I had with the NYC Midnight competitions back in the day was the fact that I got the same judge in multiple contests, and the same judge was stupid every single time. Let's see. That's a lot of description to start every sentence. Blur it in a bit to the text, perhaps. Does that make sense? But see, that's not the problem. See, that's the thing. The people in these writing contests like that sort of thing. They like the extra verbose wording to feed the scene, so to speak. So I've changed my writing style to add that stuff to it because I know that's what they want. They want sights, they want sounds, they want sense, they want what the people is feeling. They want to bring like the emotion into the scene out, and you do that by describing not just the actions, but everything that's going around. That's what I've learned in my writing class. Anyway, so what the judges liked about your story. Judge 2280 says, "I enjoyed the humorous nature of Walter's paired against the more stern Aaron. I think they played off each other nicely. I can also appreciated this being a more historically inspired work of fiction." I can also appreciated this being a more historically inspired work of fiction. Great English there, Judge, who's supposed to be writing my writing, or judging my writing. You can't even write a proper sentence, yet you can't judge my writing. You can't even spell things right. Judge 2424. "I like this clever creative spin on a notorious historical figure. The punny wordplay from Burr to government and the title itself adds a lot of fun, and Walter's possible knowledge of Aaron's true identity creates tension." Yes, that's what it does. It creates that's the point. 2270. "I thought this was a clever interpretation of the prompt. All of the puns were amusingly corny. There were some nice descriptive details like the cool country air, the squeaking of the hinges, the dew-laden grass, etc. I thought you did a great job at building to a dramatic climax with the fire." What's wrong then, right? I mean, other than them having a bad grammatical error, what's wrong with what I've written? The story needs more daily bodily functions. Yes, more piss and shit, right? What the judges feel needs work. The first judge. "While I like that this was somewhat historically inspired, I think that because of my knowledge on Aaron Burr, I could piece together some of the things that weren't completely apparent throughout the story. I think you should explain more about his dreams and why he was having them in order to help give his thoughts some context. I also wish I understood why exactly it was so important for him that he go out west, that General Wilkinson set a man to annoy him so much that he would eventually cave and go. What exactly did they need from him? Why was Burr so reluctant? I would recommend paring down one of the scenes of Walter annoying Burr in order to answer some of these questions." Okay. He says he enjoyed the humorous nature of Walter paired against the more stern Aaron. And one of the other judges was like, that Walter's possible knowledge of Aaron's truly creates tension. But yet, why do you need to know what exactly this Walter needed from him? Why do you need to know what is going on out west? Why do you need to know I tell you pretty much what's going on. I told you in the dream that he shot somebody, that it was Alexander. And then later on in the story, I told you that he pointed up at the heavens and blamed Alexander and then looked down and said, if there was any justice, you'd be down there, i.e. in hell. So clearly it means he killed him. Do you need to know anything else? If this person was named Joe Smith instead of Aaron Burr, and I wrote it that way, would it be any less any more understandable, or would you have just accepted it? Are these people rejecting this story simply because they know Aaron Burr's a historical figure, and as such, they want you to know more about what's going on? Second person, while the last scene allows for a lot of fun wordplay, I'm not sure it's necessary. The majority of the narrative is Aaron's point of view, and the heart of the story belongs to him. Yes, but he escaped. He's gone. The switch beyond it jarred me, and it also perhaps reveals too much. Part of the story fun comes from not knowing for sure how much Walter knows. He clearly knows. I enjoyed thinking through it for myself, but the final revelation takes that away. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to take it away. It just gives an answer. And perhaps brings more questions. Perhaps the story could end with Aaron's departure, and if you want Walter to have a final wacky word, maybe he could shout a dopey pun as Aaron rides off. But that doesn't explain, they seem to be wanting more exposition, but then are complaining that I give it. It doesn't make sense. The Last Judge. While I appreciate how you combine historical fiction and comedy, I do think that your story relies heavily on the reader's knowledge of the historical context. In my opinion, a story needs to stand on its own, and major plot points need to be clear, whether the reader knows the history or not. For instance, I think you could have been more explicit as to why Aaron was delaying going out west, his relation to General Wilkinson, and what his business in Louisiana was. I had 2,500 words. I had to write a story that was 2,500 words long. I couldn't go longer than 2,500 words. I would rather deal with the tension of what was going on and throw in more jokes than spend time totally giving exposition about why Aaron was going out west, what his relation was to General Wilkinson, and what his businesses in Louisiana territories were, because it wasn't Louisiana at the time, it was just the Louisiana territories. But do I really need to go into the fact that Aaron Burr was going to Louisiana territories to form a separate country so he could commit a coup? How does that add to the comedy? Did I really need to go into more details about who General Wilkinson was and the fact that he was helping Aaron Burr plot this coup? Was that really important to the comedy and the tension between the person and the neighbor and Burr? Do you really need to know why he was delaying going out west? He didn't. He was not wanting to go. He was tired of everything. I think that was pretty much was clear. But yet these people, I mean, I guess those who can't write judge. I guess that should be it. Tension keeps him upset. Yes. See, Alan Drifter, I guess what Steve's trying to say, and kind of agree with him, although the judges sound like they didn't know what they were talking about. That's the thing. Maybe Steve has a point about the wording, but I'm kind of trying to write. I want to write to what the judges like. And clearly the judges liked my descriptions. So I did. That's not my mistake. My mistake is the fact that I'm not, omniscient. I can't figure out what the hell each particular judge is going to want. And I can't write for them as I'm writing. So I have to write for a general population. And I'm trying to write a comedy. So if this is a comedy, why do I have to go into details about why Aaron Burr wants to go west? If the reason Aaron Burr is going west isn't funny, why am I going to include it in a comedy? If the reason Aaron Burr, General Wilkinson wants him to go west is not funny, why am I going to include that in the comedy part? If his business in Louisiana wasn't comedy, why would I include that in a comedy story? This is summed up by, I think it was Major League 2. The movie Major League 2, which I was in for a very brief part as an extra. Way up, you can't see me, but I know I'm there. Anyway, somebody was reviewing the movie Major League 2, and the critique of Major League 2 that he gave, and this stands out in my mind to this day because of how mind-numbingly stupid it was, is he didn't like the fact that the movie didn't go into details about the trials and tribulations and struggles that somebody trying to make it as a major league picture would go through while trying to, being in the major leagues. It's a freaking comedy that just happens to be set in a sports team. You're taking this movie far too seriously than what it needs to be. And while I want people to take my writing seriously, this is a comedy. I'm supposed to write a comedy. I'm supposed to make people laugh. And clearly they laughed. They liked, each of the judges liked my jokes. Each of the judges thought it was well written. They just are nitpicking over minutia. Anyway. Hey, Fancy, good to see you. I didn't think I said hello yet, but good to see you. So that's my frustration with that. However, let's see. I'm not yet giving up on the writing contest. I do have another writing contest submission. This one was a 100-word short story that had to be written in one day. All right? This had to be written in one day. And my prompts were historical fiction, eulogizing, and the word meant. So I had to use the word meant somewhere in the story. And there had to be a character eulogizing another character in the story, and it had to be historical fiction. Right? So let's bring this up here just so I'm looking more at the camera as I'm reading it. Because I wasn't doing that for the first part of the last story. So, little bit of a trigger warning here, I should say. I wrote this 100-word story, and it's exactly 100 words. I wrote this 100-word piece of historical fiction the day after I found out that the Donald Trump executive order was numbered 14188. So Nazis were heavily on my mind. So when I was prompted of giving a piece of historical fiction with eulogizing, my mind immediately went to a dark place, i.e. to Nazi Germany. But if you don't like descriptions of, historical Nazi events, you might want to mute it for a brief second. Because this story, I warned them, even before I started writing it, I was like, this is going to be a punch to the freaking gut. So here we go. 100-word story, historical fiction, eulogizing, and the word meant. I'm not supposed to necessarily publish this, but I don't know if me reading it counts against the rules or not. Under the dark gray Buchenwald sky, Einsatzgruppen group and soldiers fired indiscriminately. Corpses, shrouded in vertical blue and white stripes, half-buried Moshe. Sulfur-laden gun smoke stung his nostrils and eyes. Emptiness filled his heart. His thumb caressed the pink and yellow triangles affixed to Yaakov's sleeve. He gazed into the lifeless eyes and stammered. Yaakov, beloved, kind-hearted, brilliant, mensch. Moshe's tears hit the bloodied soil. My other half, meant to heal the world, you taught students, I learned more. May we meet again in the world to come, mein Lieber. Schnell, a soldier shouted. Another! Moshe, defiant, prayed. Shema, Yisrael, Adonai. A final shot reunited the pair. That's my 100-word story. And that's where I'm going to end with the writing stuff on this. Robin says, hey, Dan, you know what they say? Any ink is good ink when it comes to critiques. I guess. But they're not really covering it. It's just they're just giving shitty things or whatever. So, Robin, I like it. Well, I appreciate that. Now, everybody in my writing group, and in my writing class for that matter, were like, this should move you on to the next round of this competition. As of right now, I doubt it. I'm not keeping my hopes up because, again, I think these judges are stupid. I think these judges don't understand what they're doing. Like, I have wrote another story from one of these submissions that it was like a horror. I had to write a horror. It was either horror or thriller. I think it was horror. And this guy was the only good guy in the story, and he was wrongfully accused of a crime. He was in a car accident with his friend. His friend was driving. Friend died. He was stumbling outside the car as these things were going on. The police caught him, thought he killed his friend in the car accident, arrested him, and this corrupt judge sent him to this sort of halfway house of horrors. It was clear in the story that he didn't do anything wrong, that he was there, it was not his fault. One of those terrible judges was basically like, I don't think it's good that you try to put sympathy into the minds of the readers who were trying to read about the story of a guy who killed his friend. I was like, what? Killed his friend? And I actually gave the feedback to people in my writing group. And they had read the story, and then they read the feedback, and they were like, that guy didn't try to kill his friend. That guy was the only good guy in the story. I'm like, no shit. That's the problem. So, anyway. So I have no faith at this point that these judges are going to do anything. Now, I don't know one of the other problems I have with this competition is earlier, the reasons I justified taking part in these competitions was simply the fact that even though the judges might be shite, we still had a lot of people who were in the forums who would actually talk about the stories and, like, you know, share their own stories, and we would each read our own stories and critique each other, yada, yada, yada. That hasn't happened this time. Like, there's very few people who have shared their own stories. Of the, like, the 40-something people in my group, only 3 or 4 shared their story. And of the, again, I don't know how many people are in this group for the 100-word short story, only like 3 or 4 shared their short story as well. And one of them you can't even link to, the link doesn't work. So I've basically come to the conclusion that if this 100-word story, the gut punch one, the one based in Nazi Germany, if that doesn't move on, I'm done with these running competitions. At least with this particular one, because they're bullshit. Because that is the best thing I think I've ever written. And with so many other people saying this should move on, and for it to not move on, I would be very pissed off. So, and I would be just... Either it's them, they're really stupid, or I just don't know how to write for these particular competitions. Because there was some other story. If one of these other 100-word stories that is in my group makes it through and I don't, I'm going to be so pissed. Because I have no idea how the story is even eulogizing. I have no idea how the story is... Well, it might be... I know how it's eulogizing. I don't know how it's historical fiction. It doesn't make any sense to... It doesn't establish itself as historical fiction. But... who knows? Anyway, that's my little bit of ranting. Let's see, weren't Southern Democrats, Dixiecrats, Northern Democrats were different? It says 250 kilo ohms. Sort of. I mean, the Democrats who were in the Democratic Party that were the Southern Democrats did become their own thing, did become Dixiecrats, did then become Republicans. But the Republicans who want to hide their history, it's the hypocrisy of the Republican Party that's like, they'll say that the Democrats were the slave owners. I'm like, okay, so let's take down the monuments to these Democrats. They're like, no, you can't erase our history. Oh, so you admit that that's your history. Fancy, what is a yellow dog Democrat? A yellow dog Democrat is somebody who would vote for anybody who is a Democrat, even if it was a yellow dog. I.e., they would vote for, it doesn't matter who the person is. If there's a D next to the name, next to an R next to the name, you're voting for the D. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter what the election is, whatever. I'm pretty much a yellow dog Democrat, and I have been for most of my life. There's only been twice where I've voted for a Republican when there was a Democrat in the race, and that was back in like 2004 or 5 or 6. I think it was 2005. No, it was 2006. And it was when I was running for the city council of Kenner, Louisiana. And I didn't do well, obviously. But in that election, there was a Democrat who was running who was never going to win. And there were 3 Republicans who were big names that were running. And 2 of the Republicans were busy destroying the city. One of them was like kind of backed by the police. One of them was kind of backed by the fire departments. And their squabbles just continued to hurt the city of Kenner. It was a distraction. People were arguing about their egos and identities over actually getting things done for the citizens of Kenner. So that third person who was running for office was the least of the 3 evils who had the possibility of making the runoff. Normally in runoff elections, I say, hey, if there's an election with a runoff, I say, look, you can vote for whoever you want to vote for in the primary, but in the general election, and then in the runoff, if there's a runoff, if nobody can force 50% to vote, then you choose between the lesser of the 2 evils if your person didn't make it. But in this election, there was 3, and if you didn't vote for any of those 3, your vote really wasn't going to count, and you risked it being a runoff between the 2 shitheads instead of it being a runoff between the least shitty of the 3 and one of the 2 shitheads. So that's why I voted for that one. In the same election, there was a Republican running for chief of police, and he was a good person. Legitimately a good person, and seemed to care about the people, wanted to make things right, wanted to make the police department better. And the person he was running against, who happened to be a Democrat, there was other people who ran too, but the person he ran against, who happened to be a Democrat, fell asleep in the middle of the candidate forum. So I'm like, why are you going to a candidate forum and falling asleep? Nobody's going to vote for you. And there was no chance that person would have won. So that's probably the 2 times that I've ever voted for a Republican with Democrats in the race, because the Democrats were never going to have a chance to win ever. And it was more important to make sure that the one better Republican, for lack of a better term, won't beat the other ones who were clearly worse. It's like if you had to choose between Liz Cheney and Donald Trump in an election. Like, let's say you had to vote in an election, and you had Liz Cheney, Donald Trump, and some no-name person who was there's no way that they were going to win. You'd probably pick Cheney, right? Because of the three who had of the people who had a chance to win, she would be the one who would want to win. Of course, unfortunately, Donald Trump wins because he does. Thank you, Fancy, for gifting a membership. I appreciate you. But anyway, so rolling back to the thing, Yellow Dog Democrat is a Democrat who, well, a Democrat who vote for or Yellow Dog anytime. I mean, ever since like 2006, I have been a Yellow Dog Democrat with, I guess there is another exception. I did not vote for Bill Jefferson. If you look up Bill Jefferson, you know that he was later on convicted of, bribery or whatever. He was definitely a criminal. And he clearly was a criminal when he was trying to run for re-election. And it was between, there was 4 people running for that election. There was Bill Jefferson, there was Republican Joseph Gow, there was the Green Party candidate Malik Rahim, and then there was somebody else. I don't remember the 4th person's name. But I was not going to vote for Joseph Gow because he's a Republican. But I could not vote for Dollar Bill Jefferson because his nickname was Dollar Bill Jefferson because of the bribes. So, who did I vote for? I voted for Malik Rahim. Malik Rahim was a Green Party candidate. He was somebody who was formerly served in prison, but after he came out of prison, he worked on creating programs to help people who were coming out of prison to get reacclimated back into society so that they wouldn't have any recidivism and go back in later. So he was basically taking from his own experience and wanting to help others do the same. He acknowledged his crimes in the past. He acknowledged that he did wrong, but he wanted to make it right. For that is the type of person who should be serving in Congress. Because I don't care. He served his time, and now he's trying to make things better. He's trying to use experiences to not just make himself better, but to make his community better. That should have been the Democratic candidate, not corrupt Dollar Bill Jefferson. Unfortunately, both lost, and Joseph Gow won. But he only served 1 term. It's probably the only time a Republican has served in that seat for a very long time. So while I didn't vote for a Republican, I still didn't vote for the Democrat either. Yeah, cold cash Jefferson, exactly. Like, I voted for, and then of course I went to a town hall when Joseph Gow was there when they were debating the Affordable Care Act, and he was trying to insist that the part that was on restrictions on how much cost sharing you could do, i.e. that you couldn't have more than 20% cost sharing. Like you used to have plans that would be like 70-30 or something like that, but you couldn't spend more than X amount of money. You couldn't, like, if the claims were so much, you couldn't force your people to pay more than 20% overall. And if they paid more than that, you were required to refund them back. Joseph Gow was trying to say that was death panels, because some Liberty Council bullshit that was put out about it was saying that this section of the legislation represents death panels, knowing full well that nobody was going to read it. Well, I brought the paper with me because I knew he was talking about this, and he had the whole stack of papers. And I was like, look, this section right here that you're trying to cite is about death panels, has nothing to do with death panels. It has to do with cost sharing. It doesn't prevent anybody from getting care. It prevents the insurance companies from screwing over their customers more by not allowing those insurance companies to charge excessive cost sharing on those customers. He goes, well, I guess you're much, much smarter than I am. I happened to be recording it at the time, so when I had my on the air, Dan and Dave on the air, which is the original Talk from the Left, that's right, because I came up with the slogan, so I moved it on to Liberal Dan Radio. But I had that recording. I wish I could find it. But I would just, every time I would bring up Joseph Gow in conversation, I would be like, I would always hit the button. You are much, much smarter than I am. What did you say, Joseph? You are much, much smarter than I am. That's what I thought. So, anyway, I guess that's the only other time since since 2006 that I didn't vote for the Democrat in the election when a Democrat was available to be voted for. That maybe there was one election that was only between Republicans, in which point I had to vote for the lesser of two evils. But if there's no Democrat, I have no choice. Clearly, in the elections that I took part in, I voted for the Democrat, or one of the Democrats, because I voted for me. But that being said, the vast majority of my votes and ballots are cast for Democrats because, again, and especially now, especially because we cannot allow the Republicans to gain any more inches. They've gained too many inches as it stands. So, spell Joseph. See, you won't be able to find the sound clip because it was only available on the old WGSO ones. And I don't know if they have any more of our stuff. But it's Joseph Gao, G-A-O. So Joseph Gao, G-A-O. But again, I don't think you're going to find it. If you do, I'll be hella impressed with you. But I don't think you're going to be able to find it. I don't think it's anywhere. Unless, hold on. Now that you've got my brain thinking, am I hitting the right one? Nope. Let's go to here. Let us sign in. Customer account. Let's put in the password. How long have you known me? Pretty long. But let's see, we're not dealing with that. Oh, I have lots of. It's offers. I have notifications that I have to deal with too. What are my notifications? Your domains will be renewed. Well, obviously, my invoice, security risk. I'll have to deal with security risk. I guess at some later time. Web space. Use web space. Let's see if I can find it. I can only imagine. Are you friends now? Yes, of course. Best of. Wow. Working. Let's see. Oh, hold on. I escaped out of the web space. This is interesting. I have a lot of stuff in here that I didn't know I had in here. Go to Dan and Dave. Best of. Clips. Dan and Dave clip part 1. Let's see. Can I download this? Oh, I did download it. Okay. Wow, that's long. Let's see. Media player. This is going to be interesting. We're listening to an old episode of Dan and Dave on the air. Talk for the left.
Let's get to the discussion on
Dan.
healthcare.
Well, we'll be discussing healthcare, as you have said. I'm taking your calls at 985-661-2929 on the North Shore and 504-556-9696 on the South Shore. Dan, we're going to look at some simple requirements for healthcare in America, or basically what we're calling the American Healthcare Plan. Our first guest is Mr. Ron Pollock. Mr. Pollock is the Executive Director for Families USA. Our second guest, which we have in the studio with us, is Mr. Mike Stagg. Mr. Stagg is a healthcare researcher and former congressional candidate. Welcome, Mr. Stagg, and welcome, Mr. Pollock.
Hey, thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. And Mr. Pollock, can you tell us a little bit about Families USA? What do you all do?
Families USA has been around for 27 years. We're considered the national organization for healthcare consumers. Our goal is to achieve high-quality, affordable health care for all Americans, and that's what we have a staff of 60 people, and we work and we're deeply involved in this health reform debate that's taking place right now, and it is our hope that at the end of the day, hopefully this year, we will actually get legislation passed that moves us very close to that objective.
Well, absolutely, and we're absolutely here on the Dan and Dave show very enthusiastic about getting health care for everyone, quality health care for everyone in this country, and certainly that's why we're going to be discussing today what are the basic requirements for health care in America, or like I said, the American plan. We also have with us in the studio Mr. Mike Stagg. Mr. Stagg, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in health care.
Well, part of what I do is I work for a small healthcare management company. We don't manage healthcare facilities, but we do project management for them. We do primary healthcare research and primary healthcare needs assessments in rural communities and other communities. And as a result of that work, we have to go through a lot of statistics about health care in Louisiana. We talk to a lot of people about the conditions of health care in their community. And as a result of that, it's clear that Louisiana always ranks near the bottom of quality of health care in the United States. So basically, if the United States health care has a cold, Louisiana has pneumonia.
But Mike, I thought Bobby Jindal saved the healthcare system of Louisiana. Isn't that the case?
Well, actually, if you look at what the Louisiana Hospital Association says about the recent Medicaid cuts, the $80 million in Medicaid cuts that are targeted on doctors and hospitals, they say, the Louisiana Hospital Association says it's going to cost 1,930 jobs in Louisiana hospitals, private sector hospitals, and it's going to result in higher costs of people with health insurance. That's the core of the problem, that you have a system where there's cost shifting, and the only people with the deepest pockets in this case are people with health insurance. And so higher charges on people with health insurance results in higher premiums, which drives more people out of the insurance, private insurance arena. And when you have more people uninsured, you have higher levels of untreated chronic disease, which ends up being a major cost. And they go to the hospital and get treated, they can't pay for it, so premiums end up going up again. So
lather, rinse, repeat.
I want to underscore that point. That's a very important observation. We released a report about 3 months ago that looked at the cost of uncompensated health care for the uninsured and how that affects the premiums of those people who do have insurance. And what we found, we used an actuary, a well-respected actuary, Milliman Company, to work out the numbers. And for family health coverage, the average add-on to premiums to pay for the uncompensated health care costs of the uninsured in 2008 was $1,017. And it's obviously quite a bit higher now in 2009. And so if we expand health coverage and reach all, or at least close to...
I'm just stopping this for a second just to say I am finding a whole bunch of stuff on my web space that I had no idea still existed. I have, entire, podcasts of, audio clips of podcasts, July... this is the... March 6th, 2009, April 17th, 2009, April 24th, 2009, May 22nd, the day 2 days after my birthday, 2009. I have these clips in here that I had no idea that I had. And what I may very well be doing with this, what I may very well feel like doing, is I may very well put this up on the Patreon. Why? Because I can't play these on here. If I play these on here, I'm going to get copyright dings because I have old Hypocrites of the Week, and the old Hypocrite of the Week doesn't use the If I Had a Chicken audio. It uses Yakety Sax from Benny Hill, and I had the old intro, the old shows in particular. We used American Idiot as the intro and outro of the show. That's going to be a copyright violation. Sometimes we entered shows, or at least the end of the show was American Idiot or whatever. Sometimes we came out of commercial breaks. So one time we used More Human Than Human, and the person used a version of More Human that had the woman moaning really loud. I'm like, oh Jesus, oh my God, I don't want this to be on. I wanted the regular G-rated version of it. But yeah, there's tons of stuff on here. There's old ads. There's an ad for NOPF. I don't know even know what NOPF is. Sharbug Diva, which is one of the people that sponsored us. At least 5 Hypocrite of the Weeks in this folder. 2 clips, what I used to call a 2-minute drill. I would take a song and repeat it. One of them I know is about abortion rights. I know one of these is about abortion rights, and I used a Goo Goo Dolls song that was about abortion. Slide, I think, was about abortion, and so I was repeating that. I was like, woo, and then just went back and kept repeating the same thing, and so that's what I did. Well, it's now time for the Dan and Dave 2-minute drill, and then blew a whistle or whatever. So anyway, let's continue listening to this as I continue to look at all of these other audios to see if I could beat Alan or Jet or see if I could beat Chris to this. Let's continue.
Numbers of people who don't have health coverage today. We can reduce this, what we call hidden health tax, so that the premiums of people who do have insurance today can be brought down.
And absolutely, but the issue is you talked about the premiums can be brought down, but we haven't seen anyone's health care premiums go down on average in quite some time.
No, that's exactly right. Of course that's true. What I'm saying is if health care reform results in expanding coverage for people, which clearly is one of its key objectives, then the premiums, particularly the premium portion that we pay to pay for the uncompensated health care costs of the uninsured, that would no longer need to be added to our premium bills, and that would allow premiums to come down. But you're right. The general point that you're making is insurance premiums have risen very substantially. We're just releasing state-by-state numbers of how premiums rose compared to paychecks. And on average, nationally, premiums over the last decade rose 5 times faster than earnings.
Absolutely. My point I was trying to make about the premiums don't come down is if a company has a cost reduction, they typically don't have a reduction in their sales price that they use. And certainly when we're talking about private health care insurance in this country, I don't think those people who are making millions of dollars up at the top of these companies are going to be interested in dropping their costs to individuals or other businesses in this country because they've experienced a savings. And my point to that is that's why we need to have a public option that puts them in competition with an organization that basically does not have a profit motive and forces them to look at what is the most effective, cost-effective way of delivering health care to people in the United States.
Well, we agree with that. That public plan option does make a great deal of sense. We do have that in the bill that's before the House of Representatives. I'm not yet clear whether we will have that in the bill that's before the Senate. And if not, in the Senate is probably going to try to create competition through a system of co-ops. But you're right. We want to try to create some accountability to insurance companies, and one good way to do that is to induce competition.
In Louisiana, Blue Cross Blue Shield has 61% of the market. And
which
you add the
they're
second largest company, you're up to 74%. There is no competition for health care insurance in the private markets in Louisiana. There is no market.
Yeah, and that's why adding competition through a public plan or a co-op would be helpful.
We do want to go real quick, and we want to add to the conversation Mr. Stephen Walker. Steve's been a guest on our show previously. Thank you for being a guest on our show. Are you there, Steve?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me.
Great. And Steve is from Organizing for America, and one of their big pushes is also the passage of the health care bill.
That's correct, and thank you very much for having me on the show again, and it's great to speaking to the audience. And so I'll start here where I left off last time, which is, we're closer now than the United States Congress has been in 70 years in passing significant health care reform legislation. And we have a chance to pass probably the most revolutionary act in the history of this government in making sure that we care for the people who need service.
Good night, 250 kilometers.
Everyone. So people might have close their eyes and get a picture of a person who needs help in terms of their cost.
There we go. All right, I'm going to do this real quick. I'm going to open up this other video. Yeah, I'm definitely glad I left that off of. I put that on at least so you can't hear it because I'm hearing Green Day. Don't want to be in. So Joseph Gao had his first town hall in the fourth in his whatchamacallit. All right, let's see. Let's see. So we've passed Green Day's American Idiot. So let's see if I
Today
found
we'll be
it.
discussing healthcare, and we'll be taking your calls at 985-661-2929 on the North Shore and 504-556-9696 on the South Shore. Dan, let's take a look at the healthcare debate going on right now. Our first guest is Dr. Ellen Marie Whalen. Dr. Whalen is a senior health policy analyst and associate director for Health Policy at the Center for American Progress. Welcome, Dr. Whalen.
Hi there.
How are you today?
I'm doing fine. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing pretty good. Dan's doing pretty good too. Dan had some fun last night.
Yeah,
he's gonna get an opportunity to talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Dr. Whalen, there.
All right, so there's so I think I found the show. Let's see. Hold on. I'm trying to see if I can find this one. Let's see.
Well, yeah, and what's interesting is that, our local newspaper that I tend to find to be a lot more conservative than people who would espouse that there is a liberal media out there, actually correctly stated when somebody asked Cow to talk about the Republicans and said, including the way that the Times-Picayune said it was, including former Governor Sarah Palin, who have criticized the bill by misrepresenting elements such as end-of-life counseling for Medicare recipients. Palin called them death panels. So we actually had the Times-Picayune confirming that Sarah Palin was misrepresenting elements of the bill, which that is a plus and it's a positive. It just needs to be done by more people.
Absolutely, and just to reemphasize, when you say Cow, Dan, you're talking about second congressional district from Louisiana, Congressman
yes,
Cow.
He had a town hall meeting last night that I was fortunate enough to attend, and we have some clips for that we'll be playing a little later.
Absolutely. One of the other things that
Okay, there we go. A little better now. I turned the volume down to 0. So the clips we'll be hearing a little later. So let's see. Let's see if I can find those
reform
clips
that
real
took
quick.
place over,
So we still have that guest.
Some of it's going to be,
if they so choose.
Still have that guest.
some kind of oversight.
Still have that
Dr.
guest.
Whalen, would you like to make a charge? You might be suffering from a condition called barachnophobia.
See, I found this clip too that was called barachnophobia. It was a commercial, a fake commercial that we made that I produced that was sounding like and I was about to play it on y'all. I was about to blindly play it when it comes to on this channel right here on Right Live. But unfortunately, it has Huey Lewis's "I Want a New Drug" underneath it, so I'm glad I didn't play it because we would have gotten another copyright ding. So let's fast forward to the commercials. Welcome to the jungle. We have.
And
here we go. I think I found it.
What's your first name?
Eric.
Eric. Okay. And what do you? You're here
this
for
is
the
just
healthcare.
interviews. This is just interviews. Okay, hold on. Oh, there's barachnophobia again. Let's see. We're back out of the next commercial break.
The WGSO phone lines are 985.
If I don't find it within these next
on the North Shore,
10 minutes or whatever, as we fast forward through it, I'll have to dig through this, whatever. But I think I've done Alan.
Okay, Dan wants to go back to another clip he had from his town hall meeting. Dan, why don't you take that away?
Yeah, there's two. There's my question. I was actually at the town hall meeting, and out of a random, it was random, and
I can't believe I found it.
Still got to get my question out. So. Here it is. There's been a lot of misrepresentations about the content of HR 3200. You have a former governor who said that death panels will be formed when it really just creates a service for Medicare people. You have people who are saying that a section about rationed care, that rations care is actually about just limiting the out-of-pocket expenses for insured people. You even have yourself who are talking about fears of abortion being funded by federal funding when the Hyde Amendment is still inactive today. So what is your responsibility as a congressman who's from the conservative side of the aisle to make sure that this debate is taken part in an honest way? Can the Republicans and the conservatives honestly have a true debate about this if they have to lie about the content of the bill?
It's on my desktop at home.
Well, basically, that last some of the Joseph Gao audio is kind of not very audible, but basically he was asking if I actually read the bill, and I think I've quoted, in this show plenty of times, page numbers and section numbers, so I think it's obvious, and I also told the congressman that it's on my desktop. And basically, Representative Gao did not answer my question as to what responsibility that he has to debunk these, but basically he said that in discussing these sort of things that are in the bill, that the bill has intricacies of the bill that can be open to interpretation. And one of my big beefs is Section 122, that's not about rationing, and so I brought that back up to him. And hold on.
The Section 122 about rationing is not that, about non-rationing, not about rationing. It's not complicated.
You are much, much smarter than I am.
Let's play that last.
You are much, much smarter than I am.
That's my new favorite clip. Let's hear that one more time.
You are much, much smarter than I am.
So there you go. Congressman Joseph Gao just said that I am much, much smarter than him.
Well, Dan, maybe you need to get into the race next time around and take another shot at that congressional seat.
Well, actually, it was the other congressional seat that I took the shot at, but, a woman in front of me did say, you need to run against him, and I said, well, raise me some funds, and I will. So
there we go. So, anyway.
There we go. So, sorry, Chris. I'm very sorry that I found the clip for you. Goodbye, Big Hook. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you. We're going pretty much soon as well. I am just so happy I found that. I'm just like, I'm sitting here, let me look at this thing real quick. Let me just look at my old internet archives or whatever, and there we go. There's that. So here's what I'll be doing. Because I know a lot of creators will do things, for example, like they'll like, there's a couple of, like, there's people that are going over their first watch now of, like, Star Trek The Next Generation, and so they'll put shorter clips on YouTube because they're worried that, like, there's fair use issues of it, but so if they have to limit the amount of critiques that they give or amount of show that they watch to, like, 10 minutes of show or less or whatever. So but I know on their Patreon pages, what they will do is they will post old episodes or whatever. They'll post or they post the full episodes where they're not necessarily as strictly bound by the copyright agreements as other people might be. So I guess I'm going to push this out there as another reason why you should become a Liberal Dan Radio patron. I have in this folder alone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 26 at least episodes of Dan and Dave on the Air Talk from the Left, that's right. Plus other clips and other things that I have found, like old examples of Hypocrites of the Week and other things like that. So if you want to be able to listen and watch to all of those things completely unedited, completely in the way that they aired previously, I will be posting them slowly, but I will get them up onto the Patreon, up into the patreon.com/liberaldan or patreon.liberaldan.com. Either way will get you there. You'll be able to listen to older clips of myself as well. So I'm very excited about this, and even if it doesn't mean any additional people join up with the patron and become a patron of Liberal Dan Radio, I'm still just very excited over the fact that I found the clip and I just live recorded it, so I have an easier time to uploading it as the clip. I'm going to add that to my favorites again because I'm just going to have to, because why wouldn't I? Since it's just amazing. Like, I'm sitting there like, I think I might be this one place, and it took me less than, I think, 20 minutes to get there. So I'm very happy about that. But just as another reminder of something else, the other thing that we were talking about, let's just, hold on. Let's see there. We need to view the post again. Let's go back to nerdydan.com. Let's go to the actual website itself. We've pinned the thing to the top. Let's go ahead and put this up here so we can actually go through it, seeing the live thing. Again, the link to this blog post on nerdydan.com is linked to on the show description on YouTube. It's also linked to on the the pinned comments on both chat threads on Twitch and YouTube. So again, on nerdydan.com, I have Matchmasters, which is a game, like a matching game, clearly, and it's free to download. It's free to play. It doesn't cost you anything to play if you don't want to. The key of the game is to earn trophies by winning matches. If you're good at matching game, it shouldn't be that difficult to pick up. Earn 100 trophies, which is like, I think, winning 10 matches maybe, or no, 100 trophies is 2 matches. 300 trophies would be then 6. 500 would be 10. And that gets these amount of money specifically. And again, get up to 60,000 trophies will get $50 plus all the other ones to get to. So just under $200. It's a great way to support the show by downloading the game and playing the game and making sure that all of these things are filled. So try and play it as much as possible. But again, if you are somebody who wants to contribute and support the show, thank you, Robin, for your $3. Robin M gave a $3 super sticker earlier. Fancy donated a gift. So I appreciate the fact that y'all support that. I'm never going to complain about that whatsoever. Any help that you give, especially buying other people's sponsorships, is a great way, because I think that helps, or memberships or whatever. That's a great way to, draw people in and say, hey, you have more access to more content because somebody else was nice enough to give you that. So I'm never going to complain about that. However, if you do, if you want to get the most bang for your buck by supporting the show, purchasing a $4 pack gets me $10, and I get all 10. So you give me 4, I get 10. Purchasing an $8 pack, I get 23. So you're getting me $15 more than what you wanted to give me, simply by paying and downloading this game and just buying a pack right out the gate. You might have to play a game or two to bring up the store, I don't know. Then if you play enough to get 3,800 trophies, which 3,800 trophies divided by 50 is a 380, divided by 5, whatever that is. I'm not doing the math in my head, it's too late. However, once you get to that level, you can buy the $20 pack, and that gives me $26 more than what you contributed. So if you want to get the most bang for your buck, helping out my podcast, doing all that, that's the best way to do it. Download the game, play the game, and buy these items. Now, I'm gonna say, when we get close to those, tier thresholds of, where you're no longer going to be able to get things and, whatever. There's also another thing where if you donate, if you pay like the $8 pack, I think it is, that also potentially gives nerdydan.com memberships as well. So there's that too. So we'll have to deal with that. I don't think I have to look up to see if I missed the opportunity to do the gift fairy for the last one. I don't know. We'll see. But I think this one also has a gift fairy, so that people watching nerdydan.com live, when I trigger the gift fairy, it will not only give me the sponsorships or the membership pays or the subscription from Twitch. It'll help other people get free subscriptions as well, and free memberships or whatever. It's getting late. It'll help them get that, which will help them and see stuff on that channel without having any commercial interruptions. So anyway, for everybody who stayed around this late, I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging with me. I'm glad I can have y'all hear the "You Are Much, Much Smarter Than I Am" clip that will be on the soundboard, I'm sure, by the next show. Otherwise, again, patreon.com/liberaldan. I will work on slowly getting that. I don't know if I'll be able to do it tonight, simply because of the fact that it's getting late and I want to go to bed. So I think I have Monday and Wednesday clips at some point that I'm going to have to process over the weekend. And those will be uploaded to the show maybe tomorrow night. I'll try and working on those. And then once I start uploading stuff to the Patreon, and once I start uploading these old episodes of Dan and Dave on the Air, Talk from the Left, That's Right, I'll let y'all know. So if you have any interest in hearing those uncensored with the original audio, including the audio that includes like Green Day and the Barachnophobia one, which has "I Want a New Drug" behind it. I forgot how that one went. I was just so happy to see that it's still there and existed. It's on the web space. So anyway, I'm not as happy as I was when I found my son's Thomas, the Tank Engine, A Day Out with Thomas clip. Clearly not. I mean, I didn't tear up when I found that. I cried when I found the old Thomas the Tank Engine Day Out with Thomas clip. That brought tears to my eyes. This just made me happy. So, if I can't make it as clear as it needs to be, I know I could upload it. I have Audacity. So unless you have a better sound clip, I'll forward you the sound clip in the chat that we have, and I'll let you know. But again, I'm just so happy I found that "You are much, much smarter than I am" clip. Let's say that again. You are much, much smarter than I am. Thank you, Congressman Gao. Anyway, thank y'all so much. Those watching on Twitch, you're going to have a hard out again because I don't have necessarily an outro to play. So thank y'all very much for watching. And for those of you on YouTube, the standard outro as well. So thank y'all very much. If anything big happens, maybe I'll come back on the air. My friend Ari is having an online bar mitzvah at like 6:30, but if there's anything big that happens at the end of the week, it's always possible I could go live on Friday. If I am going to go live on Friday, I will let you know. I'll post it on Blue Sky. I'll post it on Facebook, on Liberal Dan Radio on Facebook. I'll post it on Liberal Dan Radio on Blue Sky, Liberal Dan Radio here on YouTube as well, liberaldanradio.com. So remember, go watch other videos, share the videos with your friends, comment on other people's comments, help the algorithm, because as we know, Al Gore needs more rhythm. Till then, thank y'all so very much. I appreciate it, and you have a great one. Peace.